Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed and we are exploring the stages of enlightenment. The stages of human development that we go through, should we be alert to and brave enough to be on our quest to know the self and develop. We have been using our understanding of the structure of reality and the structure of thought, called the logos and the dialectic, to understand the model of what's true, ways human beings perceive the world, the two levels of ignorance, image thinking and belief that are the cause of human problems internally and collectively, and the next, what they are imitations of: wisdom, actual knowing, actual understanding, the two together being what we call wisdom. And of course, even wisdom, or the knowing of the paradigm of reality as a whole, what we are learning is called intuitive intelligence, and must itself have a cause. So we've been wondering about what's the cause of even mind itself. And as there are two levels to ignorance: belief, your beliefs you accept as a whole, some of which you don't even know you're carrying, and its parts or activity, the images that you project or interpret or you're blocked from seeing. That projecting of what isn't there and the blocked from what is there is called interpretation, the functioning of belief. So too, the knowing of the whole is knowing, the model, the whole, and its activity or functioning is understanding. So our question is, hang on a second, if there are two levels of ignorance from the physical world perceptions, and there are two levels of two aspects to wisdom in the realm of mind, why is there only one level to self? Shouldn't there be its own knowing of self and an activity from that kind of knowing, even though it's a knowing beyond knowing as an experience? A higher, transcendent, superior knowing that's the cause of knowing in mind, but shouldn't it have an activity? Now, what we've also, that's one of the questions we've been carrying, because we get those 5 stages of development from image thinking, belief, ignorance, understanding and knowing, wisdom, and the first hypothesis, the self, from Parmenides. That means there might be a possibility of adding another stage beyond Parmenides' first hypothesis. And if the 5 hypotheses of Parmenides, including the negative hypotheses, which is the objections, you can object to any one of those, you have free will. And of course, the objections would be the categories of ignorance that people have, the kinds of false beliefs that oppose and block their development. Well, that would be the greatest work of philosophy that we have to date. So we would be contributing to philosophy itself by seeing if there's a need to add an extra level. Now, we already have added one extra level to the hypotheses to turn it from 9 to 10. That's the pathologos itself, as we see in our map here. Oh, and by the way, in the last few episodes, the music has been spiking when I've been changing scenes. I fixed that problem, pretty sure. I had to install a new media player. So you won't be getting those volume spikes from my background music. So we have already, what's that guy doing there? Get rid of him. Whoops. Now you're gone. So the 5 stages of development that we've been talking about, from ignorance, beliefs and image thinking from our physical world experiences, wisdom, understanding and knowing from the realm of mind, and the self, of course. So if these are stages of development that human beings go through, we are following the self-logos. We are following a pattern in reality that we can wake up to, so long as something sparks your interest. For Socrates, it was music. He noticed that there was a harmonious pattern within music that he could participate in, inspired him, made him curious. That's called waking up to the logos. But equally so, there are states of being that reject any one of these stages of development. Nihilism, materialism, Zoroastrianism, and Mickey Mouse thinking. We've been going through those. They are also under a ruling term, the pathologos, which itself opposes the idea of self. So we have to deal with each one of these because these are states of mind we can move in and out of. You're not just in one of these stages. For instance, Jesus was participating in understanding through the dialogue with Socrates, but then when he was triggered, he went into his belief-based thinking. And his kind of belief-based thinking was the seventh. Problems are not caused by ignorance, Socrates, you idiot. It's caused by a magical fairy tale character called Satan, and he's the devil, and you can't reason with him. No dialectic for Satan, because he's just bad by nature. All we can do is kill him. Now, of course, this way of thinking is the most dangerous. It's the justification for punishment, war, and genocide. And it also is dangerous in principle because it opposes understanding where we participate, which is our purpose. To be a rational human being is to participate in understanding, to use reason and self-reflection in a mature way. So it's the most common, and it's being used to justify any number of atrocities: punishment, war, genocide, slavery, capitalism, Nazism. And that's a common view, and it's true to the Abrahamic religions as well. So we can call it Abrahamic or Zoroastrian, because some people say that there was a guy even before Abraham who had this idea that this is the way the world is. So we've added this idea of the pathologos, which Parmenides doesn't utilize when he gave us these. He gave us these in a conversation between himself as a 60-year-old philosopher with a young 20-year-old Socrates. He picked the youngest member of Socrates' homies, his crew, and he said, you want a demonstration of this dialectic that you have to master if you want to reach truth? Socrates says, yes, please. I would like it on yourself. So Socrates went for the highest idea. Now, interestingly, Parmenides didn't want to do it. He said, well, I'm going down to my object of love. I've finished that game. Like a champion racehorse that's retired, you're asking me to return to what I used to love doing. So that's a puzzle. If he is talking about himself, from himself, that means he's putting himself at that level for some reason. How can that be a diminishment if it's the highest? Is one of the questions we've been wondering about. And of course, this book is encouraging us to add to the tradition if it's necessary. But we can see a pattern unfolding of whole and parts, model and activity, whether it be belief and image thinking or knowing and understanding. Is there a model and activity of the self? Socrates gave us a clue. He said, hey, by the way, this knowing experience of mind and knowing itself as pure being has within it an inherent aspects, eidos. This is one of the great betrayals against philosophy. Academic philosophers use the word Plato's forms, which is a physical world language to make sense of something which isn't physical. The Greek word is eidos, which means to behold. They are aspects that you behold. For instance, all of the aspects of the physical laws apply to our physical universe. electromagnetism, friction forces, gravity forces. When you jump out of a plane, doing a parachute jump, you'll say, wow, I experienced wind resistance. Because it's the most obvious thing right in your face, literally. But you can still reflect on that experience and say, yes, that aspect of physical universe you experienced most fully, but there was still friction, wasn't there, between your body and your clothes? There were magnetic forces and electromagnetic forces and nuclear forces that kept your body together. So these are all aspects. You may have when you stick a fork into the light socket or the power socket, you might experience electricity, but the other forces are still there. That's why it makes no sense to say they are forms, like a chair. They're not separate and independent. They are aspects, and also they're not abstractions. They have a kind of life, each and every one of them, and force and functioning. So, and that's what the gods are, by the way. True theology is recognizing that these eidos or aspects have a selfhood, have a power, have a function, and have a kind of scope over the physical world. And you can represent each one of those with the idea of metaphor. Them's be the gods. So that's true theology. Now we've seen the human problem is to take it literally. When you take your own personal beliefs literally, instead of the open-mindedness and curiosity of an open mind, and using analogy as we do with understanding, you are closed-minded. The Dunning-Kruger effect, of course, the most ignorant and stupid are the most certain in their stupid beliefs. Close-minded instead of open and curious, and taking their beliefs literally instead of as a metaphor. That's the opposite state of mind that we can recognize as, one that keeps us trapped in our problems. So, if there is the intelligible, understandable aspects, that means that this knowing experience also is the paradigm for our physical world. There has to be a cause of that, says Socrates. That's Chronos. Something that somehow gives rise to the inherent intelligibility of the paradigm of reality, which is pure consciousness itself. And by the way, an experience, we're not just talking about these as hypothetical speculations. There are states of being that we would want to experience, wouldn't we? But then Socrates goes on and says, hang on a second. That same principle, anything must have a cause. Chronos too must have a cause, Uranos. So there is a possibility of breaking down Parmenides' first hypothesis, the idea of the self, the one self, into a possible ousia and logos, or model and activity. Maybe. So that's the other question we've been carrying through this text. To carry a question is to be on a quest. Now, while this is the map of truth, the different levels of reality and cognitive functions that we move through, how we relate to these as humans is very different from truth itself. Every one of these stages of cognitive development comes with, in the human experience, counterattacks from our pathologos, the false image of self that we identify with, the mask, our persona, the lead character in our dreams and daydreams and fantasies. That has a force more powerful than Enlightenment experiences, because even after Enlightenment experiences, people still have their problems and their old patterns. So each stage of development faces a kind of counterattack from our pathologos, causing us to not only learn about the self-logos in our return or development, but also learn about what the self isn't, or the image or appearance of self. So we're learning about what is and what isn't, which is, by the way, the dialectic. So you might recognize the 4 aspects of the dialectic: definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion, both for what is and for what isn't. That's the dialectic. 8 categories. And as we've been recognizing, hang on a second, these are 4 stages of activity that lead to a result or goal that stands independent. So too, these kinds of pathologos or negative states of mind we go through are so that we can master, in principle, the pathologos. 4 activity stages and a goal, which we've taken into, which we've applied to all the other things that we have been looking at. For example, causes. Everything has these 5 fundamental causes. Some first cause that gives rise to the activity. The activity needs a paradigm or model, needs someone to do the activity, needs some activity or skill itself that is applied to some material. For instance, Billy needs a house to live in. He gets the blueprints, he gets builders, he makes sure that they have the skill of building, and then he gets bricks. And so while Billy needing a house begins the process as the first cause, it's also the final cause. However, what we've seen is the reason for a reason for the self unfolding itself into ignorance, only for a soul to go through the stages of development, recognize that all problems, especially all human problems, are caused by these lower levels of ignorance, belief and image thinking, shapes and colors. And our purpose is to develop wisdom, and then once achieving wisdom, reflect on the wisdom experience, align ourselves to that, which might have started as a glimpse, but going through a purification of our false beliefs to make our mind in alignment with that experience of mind, allowing us to function. This return back to our glimpse of mind, having aligned ourselves to it by purifying what isn't true about it, allows us to function in a higher way we couldn't before. So we're using that principle to say, hang on a second, now Billy living in his house can function. He can have a family. He can pursue his goals. He can raise a couple of cats or something. He can function in a higher way as a result of going through that process. So Billy living in a house which started as an idea can now function in a higher way. So given that, we've recognized that while the hypothesis of Parmenides gives us the map of reality, the closest thing to a map for human spiritual development are the 10 ox-herding pictures from Chinese Zen Buddhism from the 12th, written down in the 12th century. But of course, there are certain things their tradition lacks that we get from the Hellenic tradition: understanding. I mean, that's the big one. Understanding is the game. Logos, dialectic. So while they have stages based on maybe experiences gurus have had in helping students through their development, recognizing there happens to be different stages or categories that they can recognize students having, where they encounter something, definition, they have some sort of state of mind, demonstration, they function in a certain kind of way, division, and that concludes either in a block to be stuck at that level, or an openness to the next stage or sequel. And they depicted this with a picture, a poem, and a description called the 10 ox-herding pictures. What we are doing is adding understanding to that. Can we see what they might have been recognizing in experience and apply understanding to it? Also, is there a greater insight that we have gained from reading this book we've been reading together for 190 episodes into the nature of human problems and into the nature of human ideal activities and functioning, dream analysis and dialectic, and the essence of human problems and blocks that causes our interpretations or counterattacks, the pathologos image of ourselves? Can we add all of this in to shine greater insight onto this map? And this recognition of there being, where's Billy in the house? A goal which is independent from the 4 activity stages. We applied that to the first stage of enlightenment, the first cause, glimpsing the ox, the third ox-herding picture. The first 2 ox-herding pictures being stages of ignorance. The first one, where 99% of people are in, that they're not on this kind of pursuit. They think they know better already. So their life is going through various mazes of different directions and suffering confusion and seeking physical gain and physical pleasures and a fear of physical loss. And their ideas of right and wrong they use as daggers. They dart out like daggers in debate.
Debate pervert.
Debate bro nonsense.
Debate weirdo.
They think life's about proving their own beliefs and opinions right. And by the way, that's also the academic understanding of philosophy. What Socrates calls in this book, philodoxia. Not philosophia, love of wisdom. Philodoxia, a love of opinions.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
No, it's not. It's bad.
Debate pervert.
They're debate
perverts. Let's be honest, perverts.
Debate perverts. That's the first ox-herding picture. The second one is when you start to learn about the self. So let's have a look at the book itself. That's the wrong one. Let's bring up the right one. There we are. So the maze of crisscrossing roads, greed for worldly gain, because of your defilements. What we recognize as, this is what we're doing, we're adding understanding. So what is called defilements isn't sin or innate badness. It's simply the false beliefs that you learnt from childhood in order to survive and gain membership within your particular family belief clan state of ignorance. But when you through reading the sutras and teachings, so following along to this series, you can discern the tracks of the ox. What's the tracks of the ox? The logos, the harmony, Apollo. And he's been informed that while there are different, that all different golden vessels are basically of the same gold, so too each thing is a manifestation of the self. But he cannot yet distinguish the truth, the self-logos, from falsity, the pathologos. So he's not yet entered the gate of enlightenment, but he sees in a tentative way that there is a rationality to our universe. So starting to recognize, oh, hang on a second, there seems to be a pattern behind the thinking of Socrates that we can use. Understanding is good and universal, and it's worth doing. And underlying everything, there may be a single source of consciousness or mind. And everything, even that, has to be experienced by or caused by self. In other words, the self-logos. That's why it's so important to read the Balboa translations of the Platonic dialogues. Because another great betrayal against philosophy is not translating the word autos as self. How can you reach the second stage of ignorance, realizing that this logos that we're here to follow is of the self, if they took the word out because of the translator's ignorance? But thankfully, that's the the text that we have been reading, so we are not suffering in that way. And then, of course, the glimpse, perceiving the bull, the first glimpse. And then what we recognized is, hang on a second, after a glimpse into the source, or the single sense behind all of our many senses, or sun, a brilliant light glimpse or a vision. The next stages are about taming your mind or taming the ox. So most people don't think they have a problem. They think the way that they grew up with is the right one. And as we see, I saw a funny Ben Shapiro video by our friend RM today.
If you don't know, now you know.
Now I know about it.
All checks out.
And he's someone who is very eager and very confident in lying to everyone in order to allow his specific clan, his family group clan, the Jews, to do genocide. Literally, probably the worst thing you can do. Fucking horrifically disgusting shit. He does it with a smile on his face. Publicly. That's called the first ox herding picture. Ignorant, harmful, stupid, without even knowing it. It takes a special class of person to get into the second ox herding picture and read these books about the self logos that we do here. Best books ever. I mean, it's kind of, even in our culture, it's kind of accepted that Plato's Republic is one of the top 10 books of literature ever. Even though they haven't been reading a decent translation, they've been using translations with the idea of forms in it, taking out the entirety of the point of the book, metaphysics, studying the nature of reality, and experiencing it as justice. Takes out the word self. Again, the whole point of it is to recognize that even that experience is still a reflection of self. We are aligning ourselves to our true self nature by following the logos. Even without 99% of the book in there, we still recognize it's a masterpiece. Imagine if people read it properly. So if you are reading it properly, congratulations, you're in a better kind of ignorance. The glimpse into that idea of the good, or experience of mind, or experience of pure justice or pure beauty, eternally open to anyone. You don't have to be a genocidal Jew, Ben Shapiro. You don't have to be a religious anything. It's for anyone. It's mind itself. It's transpersonal. So all of this barbaric, savage, belief-based conflict that we see in our current level of development as human beings doesn't apply to mind. Not personal. It's transpersonal. It's open for everyone. This idea of openness is also in the open cave of Plato's cave analogy that we are encouraged to imagine as we read Plato's cave analogy in the Republic. But what's interesting is the next 4 stages are not glimpses or insights, as the third seems to be activities, a development of understanding, recognizing that what you took for reality and what you took for the greatest state of mind is actually delusion, ignorance. And your habits and patterns that you've learnt and entrenched yourself in your whole life fight against what you've just seen is more real and true and beneficial for you. Struggling to catch that ox. Therefore, now you recognize you've got a problem. That's called philosophical ignorance. That puts you in terms of our model, at the bottom, the bricks, the first of the activities, the material cause. Now, we're not bricks. All we do is add ousia and logos, and we take the physical causes, like these building a house causes, and we make them about our own evolution or development as souls. We ain't bricks. What makes us different from bricks? We have ousia, the capacity for self-reflection, and logos, the capacity for language. Therefore, what's the activity that makes use of language and ousia? You guessed it, the dialectic.
Off the perky, call me Kirky.
That's right. Hella off the perky. Call all of us Kirky.
I'm too pure.
Exactly. So, an open and receptive soul, philosophically ignorant. Ignorant not in a bad way, loyal to what you don't suspect is a false belief, but recognizing you got a problem. How else will you talk to a midwife or a dream analysis? We need a name for that guy. A dream guide? A dream analysis? No. Now, the analysis word is good because it's not interpretation. That's important. A dream guru, dream guide. Please, someone come up with a name. Dream analysis dialectician is far too clumsy to say. You're open and receptive soul. You've recognized you've got a problem. You know who doesn't recognize they have a problem? Those first two oxiding pictures. 99% of the people. Otherwise, just as we pay LeBron James $60 million to do the basketball dunks, we'd be paying $60 infinity to the best dialecticians and dreamwives in the world, because that's literally necessary to solve human problems, individually and collectively. Far more fun and far more meaningful and far more urgent and significant than basketball dunks. And currently they get paid zip. Nothing. But hopefully we'll wake up. So, open and a receptive soul, realizing you have a problem, you've got that unruly ox that you need to tame. Now, we have been talking about, for a lot of people, it requires that glimpse into a higher level of being. So you have some sort of contrast, you can contrast it with your old way of being. But for some people, there are a different class of people who, hey, they don't even need that glimpse. A love of understanding alone can be sufficient for them to wake up to reflecting on themselves in this kind of a way. A love of understanding and a good character. The glimpse can come later. So that's the fourth oxiding picture, which means we can hypothesize that if that is the first activity, the open and receptive, can we guess that the fifth oxiding picture will be something to do with the art of midwifery or the art of the dialectic? The dialectic on the texts that we've been reading, or your midwifery on your blocks? Now, technically, you need both together. As you seek to make sense of that glimpse or your reading, you need to understand the text, and a dialectic can help you with your reflections on the text. This text themselves is the mean term, the mean cause, through which the dialectician and the open soul can have a shared focus. And in doing so, you will surface your blocks and problems that come up along the way. So you can't remove your problems without seeking excellence, and you can't reach excellence without addressing your problems. That would mean that the sixth oxiding picture, or the glimpse, the problems, the activity, the fourth stage of enlightenment, or the sixth oxiding picture, might be someone like a dialectician or a midwife. And the seventh might be some model or paradigm, blueprints, paradigm cores. And from what we've been reading all the way through, we can also add, hey, any sort of development has to come along with dream analysis. Only through dream analysis can you get the guidance for the perfection of your reading and your dialectic and removing of your problems. So, and we jumped in and we saw taming the bull. You're starting to realize that your thoughts are not delusion. They're not distractions. You're not a bad person. Your mind's not broken. You don't have a mental illness. That's using the physical model of medicine. Modern psychology borrows that physical model of medicine and applies it to problems of mind. You have a illness. You're an ADHD. You're a whatever. Any medical diagnosis. And in fact, you have yet to recognize that your thoughts are not delusion, but follow a rational order themselves from the true source, the self. And they are understandable. There is a rationality and an intelligibility and a solvability behind every one of your problems, and your mind is constantly sending you messages about that. When you realize that, because you've been taking part in dream analysis and midwifery, you'll start to have some success. Your mind becomes well trained, naturally gentle. But still, if you don't stay in the game, it will still wander off into your old patterns and habits and muddy haunts. When you start to have some success in bringing your mind to that excellence you've been seeking and maybe had a glimpse of, and you yourself start to recognize for yourself in your own thinking and seeing and experience that problems are solvable, congratulations, you've reached the third stage of enlightenment, the fifth oxiding picture. Keep going, and you'll be able to facilitate those dream talks and midwifery yourself. Riding the ox, making use of your mind. Making use of your mind and seeing and making use of the inherent harmony or intelligibility of reality. Directing the endless rhythms and the pulsating harmony. Everyone who hears this melody will join. Applies to the woodsman or the simple village children. Your focus isn't on the problems, but on the paradigm. And other people's problems don't draw you in. Their gossip and problems and bullshit, because you've seen through it yourself. So try as people may to upset him, you can remain undisturbed. So a kind of freedom, free as air, buoyant. There's a lightness that comes when you have gained this kind of success in aligning your mind to mind itself and functioning through what you've been learning and understanding. So while the first stage of enlightenment is a glimpse, the next ones are not glimpses. They're all activities in time, catching the ox, taming the ox, riding the ox as a midwife or dialectician. These are developments of understanding. So this is important because our map of the cognitive functions and stages has those two stages of ignorance down here. The two together as the first one, of course. But they have understanding, like reading the texts, prior to the glimpse, prior to mind, because the mind is the model of a whole and understanding is its functioning. So in trying to align our own functioning to mind, we bring our understanding in alignment to the paradigm. Just as the more you reflect on the model of anything, the better you become. The more you watch Tony Hawk do his skateboarding, the better you'll get at your nollie flips. But we're seeing is actually we need the oxiding pictures as well, because as humans go through the development, it's not just a matter of truth. We've been carrying our pathologos, false images of ourselves, all the way along, and they fight back. In fact, one of the big ideas of the book is understanding the four activity stages of interpretation. As human beings respond to a higher stage or a new truth, they will reject it. They'll offer their own personal beliefs. They might take a piece of the new, and eventually they'll try and unify the old and the new until they realize they've been trying to save their beliefs all the way along, and that keeps them stuck in a lower level of development. The goal, therefore, of these activity stages human beings go through in their response to truth is to reach the goal. Again, the same pattern, 4 activities, 1 goal at the top, which is to accept the new logos and sacrifice the pathologos. Becoming an exponent of a living tradition, to see without interpretation. Meaning, even though understanding may lead to the experience of mind, we still have to deal with the stages of interpretation to move back into it, and dealing with our false beliefs or pathologos that counterattack. In other words, while we have these cognitive functions and we can recognize the second hypothesis is the first stage of enlightenment, and there are 4 activity stages of understanding that go above. That's the need for the oxiding pictures. Make sense? So you got the 3 leading up, the third hypothesis, understanding leading up, but also afterwards, going further. And by the way, that's why Socrates is saying there's a sequel to this book that if you want to win the game, if you want to defeat the T-virus, if you want to save the princess, whatever game analogy you want to use, that requires you writing the sequel of this book, and that's Socrates and Buddha, a dialogue in heaven. What would they discuss? Well, this stuff, right? Right? Is it right? So it's going to be easier for you to write that dialogue if you can recognize the structure behind what they'll be talking about. Right, Emma?
I'm too pure.
Stop saying that.
Making ice cream's a good and courageous thing.
Also true.
Very interesting crap.
So, our activity cause, riding the ox. The builder, the dialectician, the dream analysis midwife. The instrumental cause. Riding the ox home. And therefore, what's the paradigm? The paradigm for these activities, the bull transcended. I've reached home, I am serene, the ox can rest. Why go through the process if you've already caught the rabbit? If you've already, the net is useless if you've ensnared the fish. The clouds have parted. There's a light that shines through. But he still dreams on. So the model that the dialectician has been using is the model of a man free from pathologos. So these stages of enlightenment haven't been like the dialectician who uses the brilliant light of being to guide people's reflection on the texts. It's the other side. It's the midwife dialectician who addresses people's problems and blocks, with the model being not being, but a healthy person, a person free of your false images and beliefs and your old ways of being. So what Socrates might say to Buddha in the sequel, in heaven, did you know that the second, third, fourth, and fifth stages of your enlightenment are the activity stages of philosophical midwifery? And that means, as we've been seeing, these activity stages have a goal at the end, that for the sake of which Billy living in the house. The eighth oxiding picture. So you return to that experience of luminosity now, having developed understanding along the way in the purification of our problems. Only what was once a glimpse we can experience in a greater fullness. And we looked at the eighth oxiding picture to see if that was true. Therefore, verify whether or not we can use the dialectic and understanding to understand the oxiding pictures. The most meaningful thing for us human beings, considering it's the map of our development. Both bull and self transcended. Now, of course, we would say, okay, let's tidy up your language a little bit. Are you really transcending the self if the self is the ultimate cause? Idea of self transcended, your pathologos image of self transcended would be better. So we could do an update. So in your dialogue, Socrates could maybe tweak the language a little bit. And that's, of course, one of the themes of the book. Can't do philosophy unless you have a language for it. So one of the reasons the Hebrews have stuck in religion is they don't have a word for the. So all they can look at is a particular instance, a beautiful thing, a just thing, a chosen people, but they can't look at the beautiful. They can't leave their clan-based caveman-style thinking, caveman-style primitive thinking of belief to something transpersonal, not an example of beauty, beauty itself, the beautiful. In a similar way, Buddha might be benefited by adding the word pathologos, image of the self, when he defines what is being transcended in the eighth oxiding picture. The rope, the person, and the ox. The method, the rope, the person, the soul, and mind all merge together as no physical thing. This heaven is so vast that no message can stain it. How can a snowflake exist in a raging fire? So here we have the idea of fire again. So this luminosity, blazing fire, a snowflake could not survive. And we can go into this in greater depth because we've removed all of our delusive feelings, or what some people call the ego, but it's a psychology term, the image of the self. So you're not so you don't say, well, I'm so great that I'm the Buddha. But you don't say, but I'm ashamed that I'm a Buddha. It's neither. It's just the nature of mind. Hooray. Be happy about it. Different from beliefs and image thinking, right? Having addressed those beliefs and image thinking, you can go into it in greater depth, having removed any idea of yourself that's inconsistent with it. How can you participate in beauty itself if you think you're ugly? You can't. Ugly and beauty can't go together, they're different things. But that's great. So one of the reasons, well, hang on a second, why go through this development of understanding in these 4 stages of enlightenment and the activity of philosophical midwifery and dream analysis, only to return to what we experienced before? One answer is with a greater fullness and unity with it, by having purified anything you've been carrying that was false. But another answer is having returned through a learning of understanding and the self-logos, you can recognize here are the footprints of the ancients. What's that called? The footprints of the ox started the game. What do we call that? The self-logos. Therefore, what was once a full glimpse of oneness, by developing the self-logos in the Hellenic art of midwifery and dream analysis, understanding, you can recognize that there exists within that experience of intelligence the logos. Or what Socrates calls intuitive intelligence, where your imagination, your vision, and your most profound understanding come together. So that even in this profound vision, there's understanding. Able to recognize the intelligibility of that experience. But remember, the dialectic isn't just recognizing the logos, it's also asking questions. Questions and answers as we follow the logos. Is the dialectic you've been learning along the way. In stage 2, 3, 4, and 5 of enlightenment. Meaning, you can ask yourself a question about the intelligibility of mind itself as you experience mind itself in its fullness and recognize, hang on a second, what did we say? What was the final, the last dialogue or attempted dialectic Socrates tried to have with Jesus in the book? Does everything have a cause? Everything that exists? Therefore, even this experience, which many people take as enlightenment, like the Taoists, if there is an inherent intelligibility, there must also be a cause to it. Socrates calls that chronos. Meaning, recognizing in that experience parts or aspects that are together as a fullness, fantastic. That means there must be something on the other side as the cause of it. The cause has to be prior and superior and independent or transcendent. The painter has to be different from the painting and prior and better, such that if you crush the painting, the painter is still fine. So for us, in our return, we're saying the other side, but for the emanation, it's the cause. It's prior in creation, and it's next in our spiritual journey, which allows us to say, yes, it does meet our model. The structure of the reality has the 4 stages of the dialectic and a higher cause to that, a goal. The 4 activity causes, the material, the mean, the instrumental, and the model, the bricks, the building, the builders, and blueprints, has a result, and as a result of going back to that first cause, having developed understanding, having participated in the activity, it allows for a greater functioning. Which is our question. If everything is from self, why go through all this ignorance and problems and time experience and reincarnations and into Hades? Earth currently, Hades. Because we are ruled by the most ignorant and harmful, sadistic human beings of our species. The worst of us, we allowed them to have rulership over all of us. It's fucking backwards. Belief-based groups. Conservatives, clergy, and capitalists. So why go through all that, only to return to where you started? A greater fullness of that experience, one, an understanding within that experience you might not have had when it was just a oneness, and a higher functioning happening as a result, seems to be answers to this great question, perhaps the most meaningful or the deepest question of them all. And we have an example of that in the 8th oxiding picture, or those 5 together, or 6 together. The glimpse, the started, the 4 activities, and the return. But hang on a second, what you're returning to is the source of the ox, or mind. Within our hypotheses of Parmenides, that's a return to the second. So return of the glimpse, development of understanding, and a return. Meaning it's not the last stage. So we could ask another question, why have 2 kinds of enlightenment? One a bright, shiny luminosity, and one a pure clarity. Why have 2 kinds of enlightenment? To trick us? To keep Taoists and other kinds of people stuck? If this is the greatest experience, you can't imagine a greater experience. So it can keep people stuck there. You need understanding to recognize that it has to have a cause. So why do it? We live in a cruel, sadistic world with a trickster God? Or maybe in understanding the steps required to reach a fullness and functioning of knowing the penultimate, it will give us a kind of map for how to fully address the self. In other words, why have mirrors? It's not really you. It's just a reflection. It's missing the highest parts, your will, your motivation, your independence. And it's kind of backwards. You raise your right arm and your left arm gets raised in the mirror. So why do it? People can get tricked and look in the mirror all day. Well, how about this? So long as you don't take it literally, and we've learnt that lesson by addressing human problems, taking it literally and with certainty, so long as you're open to learning and you're taking it as a reflection analogically, you can look at your reflection in the mirror and learn about yourself. So long as you know it's not literal, whatever the self really is higher still than what you're seeing. But you can still learn about yourself. So the lessons we learned in dealing with human ignorance, openness and analogy, recognizing the principle of reflection, and not certainty and literalism, we apply even to this greatest experience, which some people may mistake as enlightenment or the self. It's self knowing itself as mind. Or as Socrates' teacher Parmenides puts it, it's the one participating in ousia. Self participating in mind. Self looking in the mirror. So what? Well, that's fantastic because we can recognize that these 6 stages of enlightenment lead to an enlightenment experience or fullness and functioning, but not the enlightenment. Which is important because that means we can say, therefore, look at this in a mirror, and we're going to make this yellow line bigger once again. Sound drop.
Everybody should love sluts. I love sluts.
Important to remember as we do our work in philosophy about loving sluts.
You suck. You're ugly.
What? Me? No, I don't.
It's a total shit show.
Come on.
They're secretly turned on by it.
Yes. That's what I was saying, Emma.
This is why I love this channel, man.
Thank you. There we go. Making this bigger. So let's hypothesize first. There should be some sort of glimpse. Too thick. That's what she said.
Oh, fuck.
He's so far up his own ass.
Hey, calm down, Emma.
That guy a suck.
Hey, a glimpse into not mind, but of self. Which for us would be the seventh stage of enlightenment. Seventh stage of enlightenment. Looking at mind in a mirror, looking at self in the mirror, learning from it. Enlightenment. Giving rise to the stages of activity. That would mean that perhaps there would be a recognition of problems. Recognition of problems, not to do with mind or the ox, but to do with your idea of self. Idea or image. Although, let's just say self. Let's not add anything in extra yet. Self. There should be some success, that would be the eighth stage of enlightenment. GH, enlightenment. There should be some seeing the intelligibility or source or and source of problems and some success. Which would be the ninth stage of enlightenment. There should be some ability to function as a midwife, but on a higher level. So what was formerly a midwife or dream analysis person relating to regular people, moving out of the physical world of concepts into the world of ideas, now you're a guru to gurus. Guru. Like, who says guru? The little robot from Dragon Ball GT. Guru. That's what he says. Guru. That's funny, actually.
Get the fuck out!
Yep, that's how funny it was.
Jesus Christ, Emma, this is not Opie and Anthony or whatever the hell.
It's my joke, not Emma's joke.
If you're experiencing a mental health episode, we don't want to have to see that.
We don't want to have to see that. R.M. Brown. So, not making use of the mind or riding the mind, but midwife or dream analysis. We got here. Directing the rhythm. Applied to let's just say, functioning in some sort of higher way. So similar to the 6th oxidizing picture, but in a higher way, which would be the 10th. Should give them different colors, shouldn't we? Let's make this one. That's blue and green. Let's make this one dark green. And this one lighter green. And this one dark green. And the next one lighter green. And there should be some paradigm like the 7th ox, but in a higher way. So not of a person free of problems, but what? Some sort of higher paradigm. Of not a human free of their images, but a self free of even identification with mind. Ideal, not the ideal mind, but the ideal self. Something like that. That would be the 11th stage of enlightenment, or SOE. And just as we returned to that same glimpse, there would be that for the sake of which learning from what it takes for humans to go from the physical world to mind, or from concepts to eidos, so too from mind to self. Because the 8th oxidizing picture was a fullness of mind. So using the Venn diagram to understand how reality unfolds, remember, everything in experience, physical experience or mind, everything in understanding, everything in reality of mind or physical, is some sort of combination between whole and parts, same and different, like and unlike, one and many, or self and other, which means there has to be some reality where we only experience ourselves as other. That's the definition of belief. Belief is when you take the limit and you can't be free. You can't be free of Christianity and go to heaven. You can't be free of Judaism and not be genocided or whatever they do to non-believers. You can't be free of MAGA and still be a Trumper. That's why no matter what reason and evidence you throw at a religious person or a conservative person or someone capitalist born into the wealth and privilege, they won't change their mind. They're not interested in truth. They don't want to leave the limitation. So but we see it here, and even though that's bad and it's the cause of injustice, it's also necessary. There has to be some force that keeps the lesser color. This one. The lesser separated from the greater. Otherwise, all the parts would want to be wholes. All of the differences would want to be same. All of the limiteds would want to be unlimited. And then you wouldn't have a Venn diagram like that, giving two things in order for us to experience difference. You would have the whole, and you'd have the part moving its ass all the way in, so part would just be in whole. Which would make the lesser greater than the greater. Because the lesser would be in the whole, the thing that we want to get to, freedom, sameness, rest, wholeness, but also have the qualities of being a part. So it would have the thing that the greater has plus an extra thing, making it greater than the greater. That's impossible. It wouldn't be lesser anymore, it'd be a contradiction. So there has to be some force that keeps a part of the parts, a part of the lesser, different. There's an overlap where whole and part come together, but for them to be two different ideas, there has to be a section of part that's not whole and a section of whole that's not part, showing, I don't know the fancy word for this, etymologically, no. Yeah, I guess etymologically, for the words to have an existence of their own independence, there has to be whole to be different than part. We have to have reality where an evolving intelligence, we humans, experience the part, spammer, two spammers, double spam.
Absolute slop.
That's you, spammer.
This is like the worst use of AI.
You're a little bitch ass baby.
You little bitch ass baby.
Bull testicles. Bull testicles.
Bull testicles to you, spammer.
Oh, that's slop.
So we experience through our intelligence or our sensation, perception, and concepts, third dimensional intelligence, not only what it feels like to be in a group that's apart or limited or blocked, but experience the conflict with the whole. So whenever belief-based groups get power, politicians, we're allowed to be based on belief. It's my belief that America this, America that. America freedom, hope and change, thoughts and prayers. Whenever they get in charge, they will try and destroy the world. Attack their own citizens. The 20th century Book of the Dead outlines that more people have been killed by their own government in peacetime than by others in war. That's how bad it is. Holy wars, crusades, genocides, justified by beliefs. Nazi beliefs, religious beliefs, conservative beliefs, and capitalist beliefs. Yes, the bankers do wars and genocides as well. The Epstein class was also the rich people. So we are experiencing, there is an aspect that keeps part separated from the whole. Meaning, for us to come together as a whole, for us to have empathy and rationality and solve problems, we can't carry belief in. It's a cognitive function defined by opposition to the greater that has to necessarily exist for there to be an experiential world. Has to. I didn't make the rules, but them's they are. Meaning, those stages of interpretation we've been learning from this book are super important. You reject the truth. You offer your own beliefs instead. You maybe take a piece of understanding onto your beliefs. But then you try and unify understanding with belief. You still aren't there. Why? You can't carry your beliefs into understanding. We can't as a species tolerate belief-based rulership if we want to survive, if we want to solve problems, if we want to stop injustice, genocide, torture, and worse. We can't take belief. It's the bad thing. But I love it. Yes, that's the human issue. You only love it when that's all you grew up with, when that's all you know. Your family punished you for not having the beliefs. They kept you a member of the tribe. There you go. The final stage of interpretation is to drop the beliefs and accept the new level. And that applies to all cognitive functions in principle. So what are we seeing? That each of the cognitive functions that we go through in our development have their own objects. So when people say, I have beliefs about what I understand, you can't. They're different things. That famous quote by Socrates that your grandma posts. Socrates says he's the wisest because he knows nothing. No, Grandma.
It's sad. And I'm sad for you.
I'm sad for you, Grandma.
You just attacked my person. You just
Sorry.
harmed my body.
I'm sorry for harming your body by attacking your grandma. The quote was, I'm wiser than these other jabronis because, and he did use the word jabronis, maybe, some are saying, because I know what's knowable. These things think that objects of belief they know, and it's not an object of knowing. So what makes me the wisest man in Athens, wiser than these other fools, is I know what it is I don't know. Or I do not mistake that which I don't know as an object of knowledge. Tell your grandma on Facebook. Does anyone ever use Facebook? I went back to Facebook for some reason the other day, and God, it was just like a ghost town. And the only remaining things in Facebook was AI slop. Like weird AI slop too. God Lord. Someone's got to rein in this, the use of technology to further ignorance of belief and oppression. Because it's just, humans want to grow, humans want to learn. So it's just going to be a ghost town of AI slop. Appealing to the most ignorant. So it's all like AI slop of Jesus doing stuff with like birthday cakes and feeding starving black children. So weird. Jesus with guns and stuff. Anyway. It's garbage.
What the hell do your goddamned, literally, religious beliefs matter?
It's what we're saying.
It's a total shit show.
It's what we're saying, Emma.
How can you be this stupid? How is it legal?
How's
How
it
is it
legal?
legal?
How's it legal to be that stupid? So, it's not a blame game or a shame game, but it's important we recognize that the cognitive function of belief and image thinking will necessarily, etymologically, oppose goodness, because goodness is in this realm. So we could also say the idea of the good, goodness, and badness, or the principle of true, truth, and false. So isn't that interesting? The answer is yes, it's very interesting. So what? So there's a lesser in opposition to the greater, and it has to be in that way, which means we have to learn from that and evolve to a greater cognitive function. But therefore, we can recognize the first 6 stages of enlightenment as someone used to the physical world with their own beliefs about right and wrong, not seeking the good, not seeking the self, not reading what we do here, having a glimpse into this realm of being or mind, where you can experience the whole for once. The whole of the section of this big circle, which is the whole, you have a touch of it. Your whole life, you've never experienced the whole of consciousness, or the whole of reality, or the whole of the cosmos. You've only been a different, or a limit, or a small bean. That's why even a glimpse into this circle causes people to think, wow, this has changed my life. I'm going to spend my life writing books, Eckhart Tolle, about lots of people like him, about how to get into that experience again. Change my life. Start a cult. Make a weird YouTube documentary about me. And why is it weird? Because they haven't done any work on removing their false beliefs or developing understanding. So they just think all of their crazy beliefs. I should drink silver. I saw a thing about one of these YouTube documentaries. He thinks, oh, I'm the next Jesus or whatever, and we should all drink silver for our health. Jordy Peterson kind of crap. We should all only eat meat. How else are you going to make sense of it? All you've got is the weird beliefs that you grew up with. That's the cautionary tale of Jesus himself. And you recognize the I magicked or he magicked from the dead was added 200 years later by the church. well-known fact, not an opinion. There is no Easter. Now, why does it say being/mid? Well, being's back. Let's fix this. Mind, not mid. Mind isn't mid. Like, kind of is within this, I guess, yeah. So we can use this model to understand the oxiding pictures of the first 5 stages of enlightenment as a glimpse into this, and then a return back to the physical world to go through those 4 activity stages to deal with your false beliefs. You suffer them in the 4th ox-herding picture. You start to recognize as an intelligibility of your problems and a source, your false belief of self, being communicated to you by the ultimate source, mind or self, both really, and you're starting to have some success in purifying your beliefs. 6, you can now function in understanding to help others purify their beliefs, a midwife. And the model is someone free of beliefs. 7th ox-herding picture. So you've developed a mastery of the functioning of mind, allowing you to return back to mind in the fullness of this experience, not just a glimpse. So there's 3 things you gain as a result. A fuller experience. 2, recognizing that understanding you've been using all the way along to remove your problems lives here. All of the aspects, principles, forces that you've been utilizing for your benefit and the benefit of those who listen to you and you care about, is the inherent logos of that experience, which you couldn't see as a glimpse. You needed to do that work, both in perfection of understanding and purification of your beliefs. Otherwise, how else will you make sense of that experience? You just use your religious imagery, like Jesus did. Oh, it's Elijah. I'm Elijah. Hooray. I'm king of the Jews. So, a fullness of the experience 1, a unification of understanding into that experience, or a recognition of the inherent logos within it, but also, what are we doing in the dialectic? Yes, we're using the logos, but we're also using it through questions and answers and analogies. Use analogies to talk as well. So, in this experience, you can recognize the logos that you've been using and maybe even ask yourself a question. The sorts of questions that we've been asking here is, what must be the cause? Or, how can I look at this realm like a reflection in the mirror of a higher cause? Or analogically. So this use of analogy, questions, and logos we bring back with us into that experience, allowing us to function in that way to A, recognize the intelligibility, B, ask ourselves some questions, and C, even look at this analogously to learn about what our question is about. We're asking a question about our cause. These are the 2 ideas Socrates gave us at the end of the book. Number 1, everything has a cause, even this greatest experience. And number 2, as above, so below. So what you are experiencing as an effect can teach you something about its cause. The painting is like the painter. That's analogy. So you might recognize that people who love understanding, people who think at a higher level, like to use analogy and can use it well. IQ tests are all about using analogy. I don't think there's any merit in IQ tests at all, but seems to be about your use of analogy. And people who have problems, literalists, believers, take their beliefs literally, the religious and the conservatives and the bootlickers of capitalists, they have a real problem with analogy. That's evolution. That's participating at a higher level of intelligence, and that's what we bring back with us, so we can A, realize the logos or intelligibility, B, ask questions, and C, in order to answer those questions, we use analogy. That's the significance of the training of the art of dialectic that we're here to do. And all of those together give us a higher kind of functioning. And what is the functioning in the eighth oxiding picture? Footprints. Or in the book that we've been reading, this one here. Passageway, like a cow that falls over, we will utterly fail to achieve the passage from the brilliant of light of being to the good itself. From enlightenment level 1 to ultimate enlightenment. Penultimate to enlightenment. See? What does that mean? That means, similarly, all of this work we've been using to experience mind, we can make use of, but ultimately we will have to leave behind in a curious way. Because this section here is the ultimate, the self. We want the knowing and functioning of self. Which would mean, so the highest functioning of knowing is to function with the understanding we've developed at the same time, what Socrates calls in the text divination or intuitive intelligence. Those who have a kinship with their dreams. Oh, see a kinship between logos and nous. But bringing it together, not having a glimpse and then using it in memory or imagination as we develop understanding, but those who have a kinship with dreams and practice their philosophy in the continuous study of dreams, their imagination becomes conjoined with dreams. Imagination becomes conjoined with a profound understanding that awakens the divine character, through which intuitive intelligence or the eye of the soul can be approached and experienced, making it the art of divination. So, the eighth oxiding picture that we have understood has the glimpse, 4 activity stages, now the fullness or the goal, or that for the sake of which cause, the final cause, awakens a different cognitive function that's not the use of images or concepts to do with the physical world, the third dimensional concepts, but eidos, or intuitive intelligence, unifying imagination and understanding together. Which would be, therefore, the full experience of the second hypothesis. See the need for the oxiding pictures to make it human? So, that eighth oxiding picture, that for the sake of which we go through the other ones, awakens the cabbages have first dimensional intelligence, they have sensation. Cows have sensation and perception, but we can rule over cows, and our purpose is to do so with intelligence and care providentially, because we have third dimensional intelligence, sensation, perception, and concepts. Concept is a double-edged sword, because not only can we have concepts of beauty and justice and truth, we can have its imitation. If these are the virtues or virtuous, vice is its shadow or imitation. Therefore, the reason why human beings are so fucking stupid, the way we treat each other and the planet we live on, bringing our world to climate catastrophe, mass exploitation, the weirdest, most crazy tech billionaires and corporation CEOs ruling everything, doing the most harm. The reason why we are so cruel and unjust to ourselves is because we can also have concepts that are a shadow of them. We seek the understanding of these so much so that our parents imitate them when we're young, and we take that for reality. So all of Elon Musk's racist, sexist shit from his parents, and Trump from his, and all of the fascists and dictators from them, they take that as real, causing an extreme, savage inhumanity towards man. So it's a double-edged sword. And that also is how we treat animals. You might not be aware of this, but there are some human beings who take pleasure in harming animals when they should be using their higher order of intelligence to care, as a doctor cares for his patients, as a mechanic for the car, as the pilot for the passengers, and so on. This understanding is true education. This should be our educational system. What we are seeing is, hang on a second, the concepts that we use, we have to go through stages of purification of what's false, those ox-herding pictures, and perfection or mastery of the use of concepts through the dialectic, the sixth ox-herding picture. So the movement from the fourth, fifth into mastery of concepts, and ultimately a complete purification of our false images, which leads to the eighth ox-herding picture, a higher level of intelligence, higher order than concepts. Because concepts have to have a cause, baby. Right? Your concepts, I think this is good, I think this is just, I think that chick is hot, comes from some intuitive intelligence of beauty, of justice, of goodness, of truth. And intuitive because, hey, have you ever experienced beauty itself? I mean, you have an idea that that kind of woman is beautiful, or that kind of thing is beautiful. So that's the A, the thing that keeps you in your beliefs. An example. Have you ever seen the beautiful itself? Not in the physical world. But then why are you looking for it? How can you recognize it? When a beautiful woman walks past you in the street, you instantly notice, you can't help. There is this intuitive awareness within us. And of course, it's not just the intuitive intuition of beauty. It's also people who pretended to be cosplayed the beautiful when we were young, our parental figures or surrogates, pretending to be beautiful. That also has that effect. And that guides us in our injustice and the fate that we're stuck in. Meaning, where did you learn the idea of beauty? And how does it hit you right away? Beauty itself is one of those objects that's not a concept. You can see examples in concepts or its effect in concepts, but it's one of those ADOS or aspects of pure intelligence that we have as intuitive intelligence. So back to our Venn diagram. The aspects of their beauty, justice, goodness, you don't just experience or wake up to in a glimpse. You've returned there with the unification of that experience, or imagination, or experience, with understanding to make use of it together. Now, we have been saying that these two together is a definition of wisdom. So therefore, we can recognize the first 6 levels of enlightenment, ox-herding pictures 2 through 8, is the human development of wisdom. Which would mean we can anticipate a similar purification of what's found here that is not in alignment with the higher order, fifth dimensional intelligence of the self, and an ultimate letting go of this kind of thinking, maybe by recognizing inherent blocks or limitations. But again, learning to master the use of these eidos or ideas, gaining a mastery over the aspects of intuitive intelligence to go through the new use of understanding, the new use of dialectic, ultimately leading in starting with a glimpse of self, 4 activity stages, going through a purification of this cognitive function. Just as we formerly were purifying our beliefs, we're also purifying knowing and perfecting a kind of functioning or understanding or activity, leading to a return to the self in a way that can unify that experience of self. It's not an experience, encounter or recognition of self with that higher order functioning, which we would call fifth dimensional intelligence, which is what we've been looking for. So that's what we can do. We can map out those stages, and then we can look at the 2 remaining ox-herding pictures to see which of these next 6 they happen to be. And if they're leaving anything out, can we have fun using our own imagination or intuitive intelligence maybe to hypothesize what they may be and fill in the missing gaps? If so, this might be what Socrates might be talking with Buddha about in the sequel that you're being encouraged to write. Let's do that now. Let's jump in. But some sound drops for fun.
I think it's so awesome.
Imagine people changing
I don't want to eat a monkey.
bull testicles. Bull testicles.
Bull testicles.
These absolute dullards, borderline chimps who want to kiss a fox.
All right. So, to remind myself real quick, we're seeing a development from ignorance into wisdom, and so we can infer that the next couple of stages of the ox-herding pictures might be to do with what Socrates is encouraging Jesus to go through to reflect on, is there being a cause or a section of reality that is the part of whole that's different from part, or transcendent from part, whole without parts, which is ironically, well, not ironically, it's how Parmenides describes the first hypothesis. A pure one, so a pure one that doesn't have manyness, a pure whole that doesn't have parts, self that ain't other, one self. So this guy here. Okay, let's see. Well, actually, let's have a look at our theory using the map and model. Right, there should be some glimpse that should start it. Maybe this is the final removal of the pathologos. Some problems being faced, some recognition that there is a purpose to problems and an understandability and solvability of problems, and there being some success, some higher level of functioning as a midwife to take people from the idea of from knowing to self, or from wisdom to ultimate enlightenment. Some ideal of that which could be kept in mind as the paradigm and reached oneself, reaching the perhaps purification of even knowing, or complete purification of self. And that for the sake of which some return back into that whole of all parts. So all of this will be happening. Now we could say all of this would happen in the state of not in the realm of here, mind, but it still has to happen in the physical world because that's how we participate in our time, which is needed for understanding. So some sort of midwifery reflection on those ideas, perhaps akin to what Socrates was trying to do with Jesus, to go here. Which would mean our hypothesis is some sort of return color. Do we want yellow? Move this over here. From the glimpse to a return. To self. And what are we saying? We're saying what happens as a result is in a full way, a recognition of the self logos, a seeing of the logos within it. The inherent logos within self, just as we came to see the inherent logos within mind. So more full participation. Now maybe the word participation isn't good because participation implies taking a part, and we're not taking a part. Maybe we'll keep it for now. More full participation, a seeing of the inherent logos within it that we might not have seen within a glimpse. So what starts as a glimpse of emptiness, nothingness. You've gone through the gateway of luminosity and all of a sudden there's no qualities. Or as Plotinus says, the mind reels at the prospect of nothingness. It ain't nothingness. There is an inherent logos. Seeing of the inherent logos. And of course, so it'd be like, what if Billy built his own house? What started as an idea, because he built everything, he can see all the parts that are inherently within the house that he lives in. And of course, a higher functioning. Now Billy can live and have a family and stuff. A higher functioning. Now, well, we've also seen there's a kind of a unification of experience and understanding together as well in the in that functioning or level of intelligence. And I think it's that unification that brings with it the higher functioning. So let's add the unification as well above the higher functioning. Unification of imagination and logos, imagination and understanding. What we say. some sort of experience. Ousia and Logos. That gives rise to a higher functioning. For the 8th oxiding picture, the awakening of intuitive intelligence that brings together imagination and understanding that we normally, as humans at the level of 3rd dimensional intelligence, experience as different things. Bring them together in the intuitive intelligence by seeing and learning to see the inherent logos within that, coming back to a fuller participation in mind, unifying those two that allow unifying imagination and understanding, or Ousia and Logos, allowing for a higher functioning, which for the 8th oxiding picture was to recognize the footprints of the ancients, recognize that they're the patriarchs or the ancients, that this is a passageway to be walked through. If there's an inherent logos within it, it has to be a cause. If it's an experience, it has to be a cause. And if there's an inherent logos within that experience, it's something that you can walk through via understanding, the art we're here to master as human beings, in time, the art of participating in time. Understanding, which would be that 5th dimensional intelligence, and for here the 12th. The 12th stage of enlightenment. And this is what Socrates and Buddha can talk about in your dialogue. So, the penultimate stage of enlightenment and experience of enlightenment, and the associated 6 stages a human being goes through as they move from image thinking and beliefs of the physical world to a most full, unified participation and functioning within intelligence itself, is itself a reflection and mirror of our ultimate goal, to know the self, its cause. So, there are 6 stages left of the oxiding pictures, but, oh, and by the way, from what I've heard, you might want to do the research yourself, these next 2 oxiding pictures were added later. So the earlier models of these oxiding pictures stopped here. And we can understand why. Necessarily, it requires understanding to have that full functioning within that experience and recognize that it must have a cause. So in experience alone, you can't imagine a greater experience, by definition. Experience has to be, as we've just been looking at with the Venn diagram, whole and parts combined. Whole and parts. So the peak experience is not of the physical world, but of mind, and is right here, the top part, the greatest whole of the greatest parts, making it therefore the paradigm of reality. Paradigmatic cause is the 4th cause, making that experience of pure knowing the final of the 4 activity causes leading to our ultimate goal. Therefore, what we're looking at now is our ultimate goal. So which of these 6 are included in the oxiding pictures and which are missing? And also we can wonder, what the heck would the higher functioning of that be? A passing through to a 7th dimensional intelligence? Or 6th? 6th. So, that's our question. Let's jump in and have a look. And by have a look, I mean eat some cookie. Why is it so stiff? That's what she said.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
I apologize. That was a bad joke. It was a bad joke.
That guy a suck.
When this state of mind, the eighth, is experienced, is realized, comes at last comprehension of the spirit of the ancient patriarchs, or the footprints of the ancestors. All right, so now's the big one. So what we've been holding out for like at least half of the book we've been reading. 9 and 10. Reaching the source. Too many steps have been taken, returning to the root and the source. Better to have been blind and deaf from the beginning. Dwelling in one's true abode, unconcerned with and without, the river flows tranquilly on, and the flowers are red. Which one does it sound like? Too many steps have been taken to returning to the root and the source. Sounds like a lack of understanding or a problem. So could this be the first activity, recognizing a problem? Better to be blind and deaf from the beginning. Sounds like a problem. A problem in understanding why go through the activities themselves in the return to the self. In other words, this person hasn't recognized what we've seen in all of these. Any one of these systems that we've learned about of our reality have 4 activities leading to a goal, that for the sake of which, leading to a higher recognition of the intelligibility within that which you may not have recognized without, a unification of the ousia and logos within that experience, allowing for a higher functioning in a greater way. So he hasn't realized what we've realized. To apply it. So this kind of conversation is something that one could have with someone who's experienced any level of mind, any level of these 6 levels of enlightenment. That also means that it's likely that the Buddha, lacking what we have learned, lacking the logos, but having reached the 8th, at least in your book, in your sequel, you could have the Buddha very familiar with this. So while Socrates brings Jesus from ignorance of beliefs into a full participation in knowing, going through these stages, so too Socrates could bring Buddha through these stages. And the fact that they aren't included in his system would indicate he doesn't have this understanding yet. So maybe this 9th is a glimpse, or maybe it's a problem. Due to a lack of development of understanding, he has to go through this kind of conversation to recognize, oh, there's an intelligibility, there's a pattern in these problems. And then mastery, and then freedom from that problem, and then a fuller return back to that self, unifying the knowing of self and the showing of self, the ousia and the logos, allowing for a higher functioning still. And that mysterious 5th level of intelligence beyond intuitive intelligence, 5th dimensional intelligence. Maybe. Dwelling in one's true abode. Glimpse? unconcerned with and without. Problem? Remember, glimpse is the first thing, then the 4 activities. Problem, some success in learning to understand problems, mastery of problems to be able to guide this kind of reflection yourself as a dialectician or midwife, and complete freedom from problems associated with aligning oneself to the self that you had a glimpse of if you've walked through that experience. The river flows, so the and what the last line should anticipate the sequel. The river flows. By the way, the last line anticipates the sequel is a line from the book. Which made me think. Sequel, S-E-Q-U. S-E-Q-U-A-L, sequel. S-E-Q-U-L-E. How do you spell sequel? Hold, please. Oh, what's happening in my... Oh, okay. I thought I had a Discord message. Hold, please. Let me find how to spell this word. S-E-Q-U-A-L. Sequel. No, sequel. S-E-Q-U-E-L. Okay. Okay. S-E-Q-U-E-L. Each one ends with a suggestion of its sequel so that as a whole it represents the spiritual life of man. Now, let's see the last line of the book. I want to find what's the last line of their conversation. The last line, I'm sure we will find out when we meet again to discuss further the nature of the divine, the way of benevolent providence, and the nature of the self. Right, okay, so it sounds like we have a name for our 6th ox herding picture, the riding of the ox of a higher level. Benevolent providence. The kind of functioning like the dream maker. Different from guiding your reflection on your problems, or guiding your reflection on your reading, or guiding your reflection on your dream. A higher level of dialectical guidance. The functioning of the dream maker. Which aligns with our idea that the right, this everything above this goal line, the self, the cognitive function of self, the true seeing, is related to the dream maker, because there are 4 activity stages within dreams as well. Ooh, that's helpful. And the nature of the self fits, doesn't it? The movement from the divine intuitive intelligence through a benevolent providence ox-herding picture, functioning ox-herding picture, to return from a glimpse to the full participation in the nature of self. Which Jesus is saying, I'm sure we will find out when we meet again. Which is what the book said. The last line anticipates the sequel. Suggests the sequel. Benevolent providence. Now, that's the last line that these two guys talk about. What's the last line of the book? The chorus has to come in. They say, I don't like this. Screw understanding and knowing and wisdom. I like my dumb beliefs, and I like violence, and I like killing the non-believers. The anti-chorus says, you did, however, come to see that there was an idea that you so held to as so significant that if it fell, all else would. Which would be the fifth oxiding picture if they were in the game. Recognizing that their problems all have a root source, and there's a way of taming the unruly ox. Clearly it awakened an old memory of a former belief. You saw, did you not, that your own position makes you a member of those who are unaware that they believe in a position. Most people are ignorant that they carry beliefs and are loyal to a position that they think is obvious or common sense. What does that mean? It means you are a loyalist to your own fundamental unsuspected beliefs. Perhaps that's another division. That's our 10th level of interpretation. That which opposes fundamentally non-interpretation. That which keeps us bound. So we saw, just as the fundamental opposition to the self that we are seeking as our ultimate goal is the pathologos image of the self, that's that same belief, false belief about the self, and if that falls, everything bad falls. Everything bad that we think is good or we think we need. Just as so when they says another division, they're talking about divisions of interpretation that humans go through in this development. The ultimate goal, of course, is to let go of the old beliefs, and that which opposes that is our loyalty. So that's our last division. The last remaining division that wasn't given in the text up until now. Which would mean that whatever that the fundamental kinds of pathologos that we address that prevents a full participation in mind would be the kinds of personal pathologos we have. From nihilism to materialism to Abrahamic Zoroastrianism to Mickey Mouse isms or the isms. There is a whole, but it's just something we make up. There is no true objective standard for justice in our world. It's just what we decide collectively. We all vote. Which may mean, while we have to address our pathologos themselves, maybe what Buddha... Oh, hi, welcome, Rebin. To you we say... Oops. We say this.
You're beautiful and everybody loves you, and you have the most beautiful breasts and the juiciest ass.
That was very inappropriate for me to say to a new person. I apologize. My soundboard is random. But it was a nice thing. So, welcome. So, having addressed our specific personal false beliefs that cause our problems is necessary to allow our full participation in mind, because each one of the 4 fundamental categories of false beliefs that humans carry are oppositions to addressing the images that we carry, addressing 4th oxiding picture, addressing our beliefs that are its source, 5th oxiding picture, once you start to recognize that and have some success. What are you expect? I don't know what that means. Opposition to the development of the mastery of, what are you explaining? So we're about 190 episodes through the best book ever written. That is a conversation between Socrates and Jesus in the afterlife. That's a play that people who die experience from the beginning as soon as they die. That's the theme of the book. And as a result of reading it, we've come to understand what makes us evolved as human beings, what our purpose is, or the meaning of life is. It's all right. Our purpose as human beings. We've recognized that there are two fundamental things that make us different from cabbages and cows. We have a capacity for self-reflection that they don't have, and to do so with language. Therefore, the mastery of those two capacities is called the dialectic, how to reason well, how to think well. We've also learnt that in reading without interpretation, we've had to apply that dialectic skill to reading the text we've read, raising our mind to the level of Socrates. In doing so, we've recognized that all human problems are caused by a loyalty to unsuspected false beliefs. So we've also put together that there are 5 fundamental ways human beings grasp reality. The 2 that are the cause of all human problems, or ignorance, are our beliefs, believing someone else based on appearance, and image thinking, shapes and colors, people who are motivated by shapes and colors. Our beliefs function to project onto the world our own images, projection, and also block us, our blind spots, from seeing what's there. So in learning to read the text without interpretation, we've been engaged in our own human purpose, our development. We've had to address our blocks and beliefs that try and tell us, don't do this, do something else. Along the way, to recognize the cause of human problems and our excellence, the use of understanding in the dialectic, and it has its model. Just as our images come from our beliefs, so too understanding has its source, pure intelligence, which is non-physical, but is an experience you can have. So these are 5 levels of cognition, from image thinking to belief to understanding to pure knowing. And even knowing, as it's an experience, has to have a cause. We call that the self, because there has to be something experiencing it. So these are 5 stages of apprehension or intelligence that human beings go through. Yeah, we're learning how to think properly. But also, there are people who object to any one of those things. So we can add 1, 2, 3, 4 more ways of being that oppose it. So image thinking, there are certain people out there who believe there's not even images. We call them nihilists or black-pilled. There's nothing, everything is illusion. There's no meaningful activity or meaningful parts of the physical world. So that's one of the categories of false beliefs that human beings are addicted to. Like, isn't chemical reactions? Yes, the next one is, so nihilists don't think there are chemicals. They think even that's the matrix, even that's an illusion. That's the 9th hypothesis. The 8th hypothesis, which opposes wholeness in the physical world. There is no wholeness of beauty, or wholeness of problems that you can understand, or wholeness of excellence that you can reach in your lifetime. Everything is just chemical reactions. That's called materialism, because it thinks that there are only physical or material parts, or reductionism, reducing everything to its smallest components. And if you're a reductionist or a materialist, you won't ever solve your problems or reach your excellence, I'm afraid. And of course, there's a way of thinking that opposes understanding. So they're okay with physical things, they're okay with physical wholes. And they're in the level of mind now. But they think, hey, human problems aren't caused by ignorance and solved by wisdom, it's caused by the devil. So it opposes care, providence, or using understanding and care to help people solve their problems and reach their excellence. You can't do that. All you can do is just kill the people who aren't Jews, says the Jews in Palestine. Kill the people who aren't Christians, says the Americans killing Muslims. Kill the people who aren't in your particular belief-based tribe. that we call Zoroastrian. The forces that govern the physical world are the forces of good versus the forces of evil, Satan and Jesus or something. And therefore, they can never connect, they can never come together, there can never be a whole, there's no meaning. The conflict that you face is because you've got original sin or evil. All you can do is just kill enough people and then hopefully Jesus comes back. That's the most common belief of our age, and it's also the most devastating and catastrophic. It's the one that's leading our species to Armageddon currently. Some people are okay with understanding. They recognize you don't solve problems by killing the non-Christians, you fucking fascists. You solve problems by understanding the cause of human difficulties. You address the causes and conditions for human problems, and you address them. These are the best people. Yeah, these are all kinds of the 4 kinds of human biases that people can get stuck in. So of the 4 kinds of human problems, and we're all in one of them, yeah, to their belief. The best one is the 6th, that think, yes, there is reason, there is understanding, you don't kill people to solve problems, you understand to solve problems, but they don't think. So they're okay with there being parts, they're not okay with there being a whole. There's no whole of mind that we can experience as an enlightenment experience. There's no model of the whole. These are the best people because at least they're open to understanding. And what we're discovering is sometimes people get a glimpse of that whole. Separation from their body in meditation or out-of-body experiences, all sorts. Which is an awakening to knowing, or that level of mind, the second last level. And what we've come to realize is, well, hang on a second. Even though these are stages of development, that's the truth. This is a model of the truth of the world that we're in and the human condition. Truth ain't enough. Human beings oppose truth. If you find a truth about a level that's beyond where you are or challenges your dearly held beliefs, you will go through 5 stages of interpretation. You'll reject that new truth. Or maybe you'll offer your own alternative beliefs. Or maybe you'll take a piece of the new truth, but keep your old beliefs. Or maybe you'll accept the new truth, but also you want to keep your old beliefs and unify the two together. Ultimately, our goal is to move through all of these 4 activity or stages of development that we participate in as activities and reach the ultimate goal to drop our false beliefs and accept truth and understanding. So, for those who've had a glimpse of pure mind, they have to go through those levels of interpretation. In addressing, through understanding, surfacing their problems and their root beliefs that they're carrying. Hey, welcome, Reeve. Welcome.
Can I do my plugs now? I'm trying to do comedy career.
Anything you want to plug, Reeve? Which allows for our fuller return to that higher experience of mind. Those stages of development are called the 10 ox-herding pictures of Buddhism. Okay, no plugs for you.
She's a moron. She's a bonked on the head individual, BHI.
I coined that.
Please don't call my chatters BHIs. That's rude.
Dude, suck my dick.
Oh my goodness. So that's where we are. So we're applying our understanding of the truth of reality and the human condition to the stages of human development as we go through the human process of growing and facing our counterattacks. Your false beliefs that you think you need and you grew up in, all you know is your family. From the ages 0 through to 18 or wherever you left the house, That's where you learned about yourself in the world. That's all you know. And all anyone experiences is the attack, the chastisement, the mocking, and the threats, and maybe possibly even murder that comes if you don't accept your family beliefs and ways of being. Hey, welcome, Sus.
I'm joy maxing, okay? And if I aura mog you because I'm joy maxing so hard, that just sounds like your cortisol levels are spiking for no reason.
We be joy maxing up in here. Are you joy maxing? I am biased to my belief that burritos are better than nachos.
Bull testicles. Bull testicles.
Bull testicles. But don't eat a monkey.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
Joe Rogan doesn't want to eat a monkey.
I don't want to eat a monkey. I don't want to eat a monkey. I don't want to eat a monkey.
And he's drunk. You're drunk, Joe Rogan. Go home.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
So disgusted in you, Joe Rogan. So, we have discovered that the first 6 stages of enlightenment outlined in the oxherding pictures of Zen Buddhism are a description of what human beings go through when they have a glimpse of that second hypothesis, pure mind, the level of mind or being as a whole. They have a glimpse, and then they finally recognize that what they thought was themselves, what they thought was a good way of being, what they thought was reality, is all bullshit. That's a stage of enlightenment, beyond even a glimpse. Because there are some people who have this glimpse, and instead of realizing that their former way of being was wrong, they use it to justify their old way of being. Wow, I must have experienced Jesus. I'm like, Jesus, come back. Or they start a cult, or they start a teaching, and they teach people how to have that experience. Some people think Ed Tolle might be in that category. He had a glimpse, and now he writes these books talking about how he thinks people might get back there again. Jesus is in that camp. He had that glimpse, and he used it to justify his Jewish Hebrew beliefs to his tragic demise, pathetic demise. He didn't have a realization like a tragic hero does at the end. So recognizing that what you took to be real, your old beliefs and image thinkings and ways of being, are not in alignment with what you just had a glimpse of, a more real level of consciousness, that's the second stage of enlightenment. While a glimpse is the first, the second is struggling to tame your mind and way of being. Now that's represented by an ox as a metaphor. Trying to catch your ox as your ox tries to go back to where it used to go back to, its old muddy haunts, the old negative tendencies, old patterns, old friends, old addictions. But then once you start to recognize that even your thoughts that drive you in bad directions, even they are understandable, even they have a providential care, and you start to have some success, that's the 5th ox herding picture, taming the ox. Now what's interesting is, it seems like just as there are 4 stages of development to our ultimate goal, knowing the self, 4 stages of activity we go through, so too are there 4 stages of activity within enlightenment. You're addicted to the stream. Hooray!
It's not being crazy. It's called reaching a higher sense of being.
You're not crazy. It's called reaching a higher sense of being.
My head is quite large and filled with secrets.
Cool as a cuke.
All of those things. So we've uncovered that there might be a pattern. Maybe everything in reality follows this structure of the dialectic. 4 activity stages leading to an ultimate goal. Sometimes called that for the sake of which. The reason we go through the other things. So the 6th ox herding pictures is like this 3rd you've become a dialectician. You have learned how to guide that reflection on people's problems that they face, or their dreams, because your dreams tell you about this, gives you information about this. But of course, we've seen understanding as its activity has to have a model, or the whole of the parts. That idea of someone free of their pathologos is the model that the midwife uses, or the philosophical midwife, helping people give birth not to babies but to the false ideas or beliefs they carry. And that freedom of your problems is that seventh oxiding picture. So facing problems, starting to recognize problems are solvable and having some success, become able to lead these discussions yourself, and finally free of all of your problems, allowing you to return to what you first saw as a glimpse. So these 6 stages from a glimpse through 4 activities to its return describe the human process of moving from the physical world of ignorance and beliefs into the fullest participation into the realm of mind. So what started as a glimpse of mind in an out-of-body experience, or a psychedelic experience, or a meditation experience, or a sporting experience, however you have it, dream experience, you now have aligned yourself to, which means you can, all of those activities are all to do with understanding. So you're returning to this experience with understanding in your back pocket. So you've gained understanding. You've purified everything, your false beliefs. But also you've realized that understanding involves the activity of the dialectic, question and answer, about what's most meaningful. So the idea is you return back to our pure mind, free from anything. So you're in beauty itself, free from any ideas that you're not beautiful, or you're ugly, or you're a small bean or a bad noodle. So you can have a fuller participation in it. You've learned to recognize its aspects. It's a oneness, but it's beauty. And there's justice there, and there's sameness there, and there's wholeness there, and there's excellence there, and there's life there, and there's power there. All of these aspects are actually there to be seen through the activity steps of developing of understanding. That's called recognizing the logos. It was a brilliant, beautiful experience. Now when you go back there, not only that, it's understandable. There is an inherent structure, aspects. One of the great betrayals against philosophy is people translate this as Plato's forms. They're not forms. Forms is a language of the physical world. A form of a chair. Bollocks. That's a lie. Plato's eidos. We should use the Greek word. The Greek word eidos means aspects that you can behold. So you return in a more full experience of it, able to recognize the eidos or inherent logos, which means you can unify both your ousia or experience with the logos or understanding, awakening a higher dimension of intelligence, which allows you to function. Now you can function in a higher way, which is the whole point of going through those activities. And the metaphor we've been using is Billy building a house. He goes through those same 4 stages or activities or causes. He needs a material cause, bricks to be builded with. He needs an activity, building. He needs the doer, the builders, and he needs the model, the blueprints. So what started as Billy with an idea, a glimpse of wanting a house to live in, once all of these activities have been perfected and the house has been built, Now Billy can function in the house in a higher way. He can live a life, he can pursue his dreams, he can get a couple of cats if he wants to. And you can use other examples. Building a car. When the parts of the car come together, you can drive it to the shop. You can function with it in a higher way. Parts into a greater whole. So we have used this understanding from Socrates and philosophy, applied it to the closest thing to a map of spiritual development, the ox-herding pictures, and recognized that the first 6 stages of enlightenment, from a glimpse of the third of the ox, struggling to catch the ox, taming the ox, riding the ox yourself and singing a song that can help others, and finally free from having to go through that because you've purified your false beliefs. That's the 7th ox-herding picture, leads to the 8th ox-herding picture, or the 6th stage of enlightenment. What was formerly a glimpse you can go to in a more full way, unifying experience and understanding, allowing for a higher and intelligent functioning. And in the book, Socrates calls that awakening your divine intelligence, or the art of divination, or intuitive intelligence, unification of imagination and a kind of understanding. So the first dimensional intelligences are cabbages that can have sensation. Cows are a higher dimension of intelligence. They have sensation and perception. Humans are third, sensation, perception, and concepts, which is a double-edged sword. Because unless you've started to do what we are doing here, the people who train you about those concepts and how to use those concepts are your parents. And sorry to say this, they were ignorant. And in certain key moments of your development, they were stupid and ignorant and pretended to be wise. They played king priest of the house. That's the source of your false beliefs about yourself, where you take the blame for their ignorance and injustice and think, wow, I was just following my self-goals and thinking and reflecting, and they freaked out. There must be something wrong with me. Bullshit. There's nothing wrong with you. You have picked up their problem. The act of philosophical midwifery, or riding the ox home, is to teach people how to give the problem back to their parents and say, bullshit, where did you get this fucking shit? You got it from your parents, you deal with it, I'm not carrying your burden. Freeing yourself from any diminishment of your own understanding, knowing, and freedom of self. Human problems are nothing other than keeping the blame, buying the bullshit. Now, the story of Achilles in Homer's Iliad is the worst kind of person, the biggest jerk ever, who thought that his family was special and his parents were great and his way of being was chosen by the gods, as everyone does, because that's all you know as a baby, as a child growing up. But he recognized the disaster of false beliefs, did dream analysis, addressed his mother and says, fuck you, take your problem back, I'm not a part of this. Talked with his surrogate mother, Lord Phoenix, and said, hey, listen, tell me about your life. Did you have a similar parent who did this shit to you? Oh yes, I did. Giving us a model of how even the worst person can become the best. That's called being Hellenic. This is the true purpose of humanity and the new age of man, the Hellenic man. Puts all other ways of being and traditions to shame. Hang on a second. That means if this experience of knowing Is mind knowing itself? Or a whole, this Venn diagram of a whole up here and parts down here, whole of all parts? What about this section of reality that's whole, transcending parts? Just as beliefs and image thinking, the cause of human ignorance, is parts separate from the whole. I'm a Mormon, I can't be part of a greater race, I can't be Hellenic. I'm a Jew, I want to kill the Palestinians. I'm a Christian, I want to kill the Muslims. I'm a MAGA, I want to kill the liberals. That's all being a part in opposition to the whole, keeping us under here. What we've recognized, therefore, is the first 6 stages of enlightenment are the human processes of growing up with beliefs and ignorance, having a glimpse of this section of the Venn diagram, and the stages of addressing those false beliefs so that we can return back to it in a more full way, unifying parts and wholes, but also being able to ask questions. Because the dialectic or human understanding is how to ask questions, and questions about the cause. What's the cause of beauty? What's the cause of justice? So when you're in that experience of luminosity, what's the cause even of mind? Now, one way of giving the answers is through analogy. 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 So in other words, if you recognize that in that experience of luminosity or the peak experience, that's still an analogical reflection of the self, then you won't take it literally, just as you're not supposed to take your beliefs literally, and the worst human beings are those that take their own personal beliefs literally. They are the most ignorant, they are the most fascistic, they are the biggest jerks who murder the most people, or become slaves to tyrants and do genocides. They take their beliefs literally. Oh yes, we can kill the Palestinians because literally the Bible said we're allowed to. Netanyahu told me. Yes, we can invade Iraq. Pete Kegzeth says the Bible says we can. Bullshit. It's not literal. It's an analogical reflections of the false beliefs of the author, Paul, or whoever translated Jesus. Or Jesus, he had false beliefs. It's an analogical reflection of their false beliefs and their level of understanding and insight into mind. But what we are seeing is that 6th stage of enlightenment is a dealing with those false beliefs, purifying them, and developing the activity of understanding so that we can return to that state of mind in a fuller experience, unifying those questions and answers, unifying the experience and the understanding, awakening a higher level of intelligence that allows us to ask questions about that peak experience, and even use that peak experience as a message about its cause, because we recognize it's a reflection or an analogical reflection, or the principle of as above, so below. The cause must be like its effect. And if you are seeing the effect of self, you can be learning about the self from that experience, which would mean the higher kind of dialectician or the higher kind of mastery of understanding would be not looking at your beliefs to purify them against that peak experience, but looking at those aspects of your peak experience and using them to learn about their cause, the self. So as a midwife deals with beliefs and images to purify them, to help people drop those lower cognitive functions, concepts, lesser intelligence, so they can participate in intuitive intelligence or mind, so too, the higher kind of dialectician takes those who have a familiarity with intuitive intelligence or mind and uses the aspects of that beauty, justice, whole, part, same, other, the whole of all parts, the one of all many, the self and other, uses those to help them reflect on its cause and ultimately let go of that cognitive level of functioning to participate in an even higher one. Meaning, what might start as a glimpse of self, there would be equally 4 activity stages where you recognize that even your intuitive intelligence is not the same kind of intelligence as self, starting to solve the problems and have some success, being able to guide that kind of reflection yourself, and a freedom from those eidos, from knowledge itself, allowing a participation back into that self in a more full way, recognizing the inherent logos that you've been using to get back there, unifying the experience and a higher kind of understanding, which together we call the 5th dimensional intelligence, which allows for a greater functioning to ask questions even of self. And that is the biggest puzzle of them all. What would be the even highest functioning of self? At the end of the game. Or that for the sake of which is the ultimate question. If everything is from self fundamentally and evolves through time into light and then solidifying into molecules and then into like quarks and then themselves finding a higher unity of parts into atoms, and then them higher unity of parts into molecules, and then them into cells, and then them into organisms, and then when the organisms come together, giving rise to consciousness like we see, sensation, cabbages, and then that evolves into a higher level of sensation and perception like animals, and then we evolve as human beings, concepts, and then intuitive intelligence, all the way back to the intelligence of self. Why go through all of that evolution and all of those stages of ignorance and suffering and misery only to go back to where you start from? Therefore, we need that for the sake of which. What is that fuller participation? What is that inherent logos of self that we need to understand and develop the art of understanding to see? How do we therefore unify the experience of self and understanding? And what is the resulting functioning? Can we ask questions even about the self? Is the self a reflection of something higher? What the heck would that be? This is the kind of dialogue that Socrates can have with Buddha, because Buddha is someone who is in that 8th ox herding picture. I mean, for our purposes, we'll put him there. Can he reflect on his intuitive intelligence and use the aspects or eidos, not forms, in a certain way that can help him learn about the self in a way that Jesus was blocked from because he wasn't at that level yet, which is why the book says you guys should write a sequel, Socrates and Buddha Talk in Heaven. Now, why can we say that Buddha might requires that level of conversation? Well, if Buddha is what we're going to use as the personification of these ox herding pictures, we do have the 6 stages from a glimpse in the 3rd ox, the 4 activity stages, and the return, or that for the sake of which, for mind. But we only have 2 ox herding pictures to fill the role. That should be 6. For a similar development, again, analogy, learning from our first level of enlightenment, applying it to ultimate enlightenment, learning from penultimate, there should be 6 more stages, and there ain't. So we can infer, Buddha hasn't gone through those stages. Now, what we're doing now is trying to solve the mystery of why that may be the case. Thankfully, we have our hypotheses of Parmenides, and as Socrates told us to do, the missing piece. By recognizing that the same dialectic that we've been learning by reading this fucking greatest book ever written, amazing.
I'm joy maxing, okay? And if
I think it's awesome.
And I think it's awesome, and I'm joy maxing.
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
And Emma wants us to remind us that she's cute. Thank you, Emma.
Jesus is gonna come down and wipe this place out. Who cares?
Hey, don't be so sad. So by recognizing that Socrates has been using a structure called the dialectic, we've been able to arrange the hypotheses of Parmenides within that dialectical structure, recognize that there's a 4 activities and a final, and that for the sake of which, that applies to the causes, that applies to everything. It's the paradigm. So all of these different systems that we've been learning about, dream analysis, dialectic, Billy building a house, the causes, the greatest human activity, interpretation, the different pathologos or problems, the dialectic, the different cognitive functions. It's all the same thing. It's all the same 4 and then a 1 at the top. Led us to recognize that what seems to be going through the process that seems to be happening in the first, well, in the second, third, fourth, and fifth stage of enlightenment, is philosophical midwifery and dream analysis, which is someone functioning as a dialectician to address each one of these kinds of human problems that you may have. Now, your personal pathologos probably represents one of them more fully, but these are states of mind we go in and out of, so you're not just in one. Necessary to, hey, if you give up, if you're a black-pilled, if you're a nihilist, you won't be able to address your problems. You got to address that state of mind you might fall into. Hey, if you're a materialist or a reductionist, you won't be able to recognize that there is a mind giving you your problems. No, that's not. It's just chemicals firing. Richard Dawkins told me. Bollocks! If you reject intelligence and mind, you will not see that your intelligence and mind is sending you every thought you get, even if it's a distracting thought or tangent. Every dream you get. If you reduce your dreams to chemicals, or if you reduce your own mind to physical atoms, you won't be able to move into the 5th oxiding picture and address the source of it, your beliefs as a whole, and pay attention to where your thoughts are coming from. Now, ultimately, as you gain success, you become a dialectician yourself, because it's the dialectician you've been talking to help facilitate that. Which means you, as a dialectician, is hierarchically above the person with the problem and should be listened to. And what you're doing is not giving you that person advice or your own personal opinions. You're following the logos that unfolds, because you acknowledge that there is a higher intelligence through which that self-logos is unfolding. If you reject hierarchical, if you say, well, that's just you, if you're a debate pervert.
I'm a debate pervert.
And I have an axiomatic
Of the Bible.
And you think that everyone's opinions are equal, and it's your belief and my belief. And the whole purpose of conversation is to win. The stupidest thing you can do, try and justify your ignorance and beliefs you're carrying instead of following the logos as it unfolds to collectively, together, reach a higher level of understanding and insight. If you're opposed to that, you're not going to be able to be a dialectician. Because you know better. You have the art, you have the skill. Have you seen these interviewers on TV? They're fucking rubbish. They don't have the dialectic. They let fascists go off on tangents. They let fascist billionaires, religious officials, and conservatives lie, make speeches, not answer questions. as they continue to destroy the planet and murder people for fun and profit. It's fucked. Therefore, if you think everything is relative or there's no understanding or it's all a matter of opinion, that's the seventh hypothesis. That's the most dangerous and most common one. You have to address this to be able to master the dialectic in the sixth oxiding picture. If you have any opposition in your mind to what you experienced as a glimpse, I'm not beauty itself, I'm not justice itself, I can't do it, I'm a small bean, I'm a bad noodle. Or, there is no higher reality, that's the same as my own consciousness, what I experienced was a divine gift, but it's not me, or it's not real, or it's not something that I can master, it can't be my state of mind, then you won't be able to fully participate in that, taking with you your development of understanding through the dialectic to unify both that experience of mind itself and that understanding in a higher way, freeing yourself from any image of yourself, even that last remaining category. So not even a snowflake image of yourself can survive that full participation in mind, meaning you have to address this final category of pathologos to return to what you experienced as a glimpse in the first stage of enlightenment, the third oxiding picture. You return to it in a most full participation, bringing with you that art you've been developing at all times because it's our human functioning. It's the ideal use of thinking and understanding and communication that we can do at all times. Therefore, it can unify our soul, put us into that flow state of justice, awakening our higher intelligence by a more full participation in that state of mind. So our question is, if that's the eighth oxiding picture, what would be the equivalent to each one of those for the self? In other words, where's the problem? The problem was our false beliefs and images, but we've had to purify those in order to participate properly in mind. Free ourselves from our pathologos. Fortunately, we have this map. Because in this map, just as we've seen, the highest kind of problem is the last one we have to face to reach full participation in mind. If our goal is to reach full participation in self, knowing and showing the self, participation and functioning in self, what opposes that? The principle of pathologos, the missing 10th hypothesis. Therefore, not only do we have to address our specific pathologos to free ourselves from our problems in a way that allows our full participation in mind, we have to address the principle of pathologos itself in order to fully participate in self. That's a higher quality of understanding. We're no longer participating in the particulars or the personal. We're now participating in the transpersonal. We're using that inherent logos we can now see in mind, our intuitive intelligence, beauty, justice. We're putting those together to learn about self in our purification side of the dialectic. And we're addressing, and that's transpersonal. That's beauty is the same for everyone. Truth is singular. Goodness, truth, justice, beauty, these are all things that are not ever about a person. Doesn't matter if you get 100 idiots in the room to say beauty doesn't exist, it still exists. And it's open to be experienced. That's the Hellenic way. That's the Hellenic new way of being. The next dawn age of man. The one we necessarily have to move into. But we're also not dealing with our personal opinions and personal versions or expressions of the pathologos. We are addressing transpersonally pathologos itself as an idea, as a principle, as a force. And we have to see what it is and why it's necessary for self to generate a false image of the self that opposes it itself. The principle of human problems itself. Therefore, if the only tradition that has the pathologos is Homer, the Hellenics, to be Homeric, and Socrates, coining the word philosophical midwifery, allowing him to have the kind of dialogue he was trying to have Jesus at the end, trying to have with Jesus at the end of the book. And we lost that when we murdered him. We allowed the belief-based thinkers to rule society, the religious and the political class. We allowed them to have rulership over the best human being, Socrates, and murder him, because that's one of the stages of interpretations. What do people do? They would ignore Socrates, they would mock Socrates, and there are plays that we have even today of Socrates being mocked. Threaten Socrates, we have that in the Meno. You better not leave Athens, Socrates. Here, I used to think I was the smartest, bestest boy. I was good at debating, but you showed me that I was stupid and wrong. Oh, I'd fucking kill you if I could. Exile. Why don't you just leave the city, Socrates? And then death, killing. So we have to anticipate this. If humanity is to survive, we need to recognize the best human being arising from our ranks and recognizing they will be the one the fascists, the capitalists, the clergy will want to ignore, mock, threaten, exile, and eventually kill. And they're quite happy with killing for fun and profit. We know that. We'd say, okay, look, please rule us. They'll say, fuck off, no way. No, look, listen. We are smart enough to recognize that you will be the most hated man in the world simply because you are the best. Because we recognize the human condition is that we are fucking savages towards each other and even the planet we live on. Which means the people who speak truth will challenge our savage, primitive caveman loyalty to our ignorance and beliefs. And if you know the truth above all of the truth, you'll threaten everyone. Meaning, we will want to kill you, but we all know this and we will promise not to do it and do the opposite, celebrate you, give you all of the billions of dollars, if you please share some of your wisdom to help humanity from going extinct and help us individually move through our problems. That's the stakes. That's how we need to treat Luke Skywalker and the stakes of the Darth Vader destroying the universe, or planet Earth and the human species. So, seeing as that happened once before with Socrates, we can pinpoint the moment that humanity went to shit. And we can recognize also that if that's where we lost the logos and the understanding of the pathologos, midwifery, and dream analysis, we can understand why of all of the Zen Buddhists over the thousands of years of their tradition, the best may have been able to reach this by addressing their personal problems in images in some way, without an understanding and a word. That's one of the key themes of the book. Without a word, you can't do philosophy. We need a language. That's why we've been using ousia and logos. That's why we've been using eidos and not forms. Without the word pathologos, you will be blocked from those similar 6 stages of enlightenment applied to the self. Why? Because you're now not dealing with your own personal stuff, which a Buddhist or a Buddhist tradition spanning thousands of years might have success doing to some degree. You have to address the principle of pathologos itself. That's the next level of dialectic. It's not moving from the physical world into the mind. And from the personal to the transpersonal, you're moving from the transpersonal to the ultimate. You're not moving from false into truth, you're moving from truth into the true. You're not moving from badness into goodness, you're moving from goodness into the good. You're not moving from examples of beauty to beauty itself, you're moving from beauty itself into self. You're not moving from parts into a whole of all parts, you're moving from a whole of all parts into a whole that transcends parts. Therefore, we can expect using as an analogy, a glimpse, or the third ox would be a glimpse of self. The fourth ox would be recognizing a problem. Whatever you experienced, you're having a difficulty with in some way. Your sense of self is different from whatever you had a glimpse of. Oh my goodness. Fifth, starting to have some success removing whatever it was of mind that you were attached to or identified with and having some more alignment with self. By recognizing there is an intelligibility behind the problems that you're facing. In the first ox herding, in the ox version, so let's use a different metaphor for ox instead of ox. Emu? No. Horse? Goat? Because it's the greatest of all time. The goat herding picture. Horse herding. Riding the horse is probably better than riding an ox. Let's say horse. I'm open to suggestions. If anyone in chat has suggestions of what metaphor we can use for the ox herding pictures, that's not an ox. Horse herding picture. Dragon. The idea of the hero's journey. Slaying the dragon. Taming the dragon. Demigorgon. No. Open to suggestions. I'll use horse for now. Llama. Why llama? A llama. Like Dalai Lama? What's the appeal of llama? I wonder. Wiener dog. Americans call them wiener dogs. Wiener dogs. All right, we'll use llama. I know the animal, but what do you like about llamas? What made your mind go to llama? I will eat a cookie while you type. Oh, it's gone soft. It was hard because it was in the fridge. I like it soft. Cookies. Are you telling me why you like llamas? I dropped some cookie. Found it. I can't eat it. All right. Reeve is keeping his secrets to himself.
My head is quite large.
And filled with secrets.
So, right, so the higher level dialectician doesn't use the images of belief and justice and things that cause our problems to facilitate. By the way, we saw this is why dream analysis is necessary. Because if what's necessary to make cognitive development jumps is ousia and logos, but the nature of human problems is a violent, savage hatred to Usia and Logos. That's the primitive, that's the third dimensional intelligent concepts. We're loyal to our stupid concepts rather than addressing truth. The that means, oh, here we go. I don't know. One of the animals that are troll of internet and sounds like a good animal of the ox herding pictures. Oh. Not sure about the right words. Llama just sounds inviting to questioning the representation it's in. All right. Sold. If it's an internet meme, then I'm sold because I'm cool.
My head is quite large.
Cool as a cuke.
I'm cool as a gook. I'm hip.
Cool as a cuke.
Everybody should love sluts. I love sluts.
Hey, and I also do. So yeah, I'll take it. Right. So the catch-22 of human problems is we're averse to our own benefit and knowing because of our images and concepts, but that's why philosophical midwifery and dream analysis. I sold my llama. Llamas are cool too.
I'm joy maxing, okay? And if I have a sickness for the thickness.
We have a sickness for the thickness of the llama.
Funny and cool? Hey, leave some for the rest of us, man.
I will not.
They're secretly turned on by it.
Hey, calm down, Emma.
Gooners.
So, the necessity for philosophical midwifery and dream analysis in all human lives, Socrates should have a dialogue with a llama. You should write that dialogue. I'd be interested. I'd read it. What would Socrates? Because that will give you a chance to express your highest vision and understanding in a way that can be fun for people to read. Win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
So the catch-22 that we're averse to Usia and Logos because Usia is that knowing, the ox, and Logos is the intelligibility that we see in the fifth ox herding picture and master in the sixth. But people in the first ox herding picture, ignorance, are opposed to that. Screw you, you hippie, they say. You wacky. Someone called me a goy slop yesterday. You non-Jew. You're non-Mormon with you're not wearing the magic underpants of Joseph Smith. But the solution is dream analysis and midwifery. Why? Because we do have a shallow pool of Usia, like the kiddies pool filled with piss, not next to the Olympic pool, a shallow pool of Usia and Logos to keep our problems alive. And our problems are problems because they are images of beauty and justice and goodness and love and care and strength. They are the wrong ones. The ones that Elon Musk does when he gets the wealth, the ones that Netanyahu and Trump do when they get power, the ones that religious authorities do when they get followers. They're the wrong ones. They're the cause of death and destruction because they're wrong. But they still are about things that are true. Meaning, a dialectician in midwifery and addressing your problems and blocks you're facing can utilize your false images of beauty and justice in a way that it can allow you to reflect on beauty itself, justice itself. In fact, that's what it is, because to free yourself from your problems, you have to address the image of beauty and justice your parents were playing and say, hey, this ain't beauty, this ain't justice. This is an imitation that's caused problems in my life. Here's what they are. And I suspect problems in your life. What are they? And who played this game on you? When did your parents play this shit on you? Because it's not beauty, it's not justice. It will keep you mired in ignorance and fate, and it will block you from true participation in mind, which is our purpose. Your problem, Ma and Pa, is that you are blocked from your literal purpose and meaning of life. So long as you are loyal to these unsuspected images of beauty and you don't do your fucking work to find what beauty actually is. It's a skill, it's an art. You're not just born knowing truth and beauty, you idiot. I don't care if you've got a religious book or you've had preachers or imams or ministers. You have to do the work in reading and reflecting and self-reflecting to actually learn what beauty and justice is. How dare you say that you have what beauty is? How dare you say what you have justice is? Because that's a skill. Do you know medicine? No, because you haven't studied it. Do you know architecture? No, because you haven't studied it. Can you fix my car's engine? No, because you haven't studied mechanical engineering. Then what makes you think you know what beauty and justice is if you haven't studied it? What's the study of it? Socratic philosophy, Hellenic. To read the text we do here in the way we do here. If you're not doing this, you don't know shit. What made you believe this image of beauty and justice? What role did your parents play? What game did they play on you that you are still imitating and have been imitating since you believed their horseshit your whole life? That's how we finish our pathologos. That's how we address the source of our problems. We have been forced to reflect on true beauty and justice by using what we do have and we're loyal to and we love, but are causing our conflicts. So there's our stakes, there's our motivation. That's what gets Luke Skywalker off the moisture farm. The universe is in peril. Your life is in peril. You are going to live a meaningless, mediocre life, repeating the same cycles of failure and misery until you die, causing a negative death and a negative reincarnation if you're lucky. That's the stakes. So, a dialectician can make use of that shallow pool of ousia and logos, the false images of beauty and justice that cause human problems, to encourage a reflection on true beauty and justice, and a purification of what's false about beauty and justice. That's the functioning of the sixth ox-herding picture, the midwife and dream analysis dialectician. Using what we do have in ignorance, belief and image thinking, put it together in a different kind of way, guided by the dialectician, to become open and receptive to apprehending true beauty and justice. Similarly, the sixth Lama herding man uses what you now have as true experiences and understanding from the eighth ox herding picture of true beauty itself, justice itself, knowingness itself, to ask you a question. Hey, by the way, those are also images. Beauty itself, justice itself, wholeness itself, care itself, love itself. What are they all images of? The self. So making use of what you do have to reflect on what it's an image of, while letting go of or purifying your taking as real or self-identification with the lesser, the reflection. That peak experience was you looking in a mirror, just as your image of yourself is a distorted mirror. Another way they could go is, hey, beauty, justice, excellence. What are they all kinds of? Goodnesses. A goodness of beauty, a goodness of justice, goodness of fairness, a goodness of excellence, a goodness of love. Or all of these things that you have now gained a true apprehension of by addressing your interest in them, by having your false images of those things, but having purified from them in the fourth and fifth ox herding picture. If this is a kind of goodness, and this is a kind of goodness, and this justice is a kind of goodness, beauty is a kind of goodness, what does goodness reflect? Well, what does blackness reflect? I got a black shirt on. Black. Therefore, can we use all of these intuitive fourth dimensional intelligence experiences, eighth ox herding experiences, sixth stage of enlightenment experiences, of goodnesses, and use those as an analogy to go beyond it to the good, its cause. Another way of going, hey, in that process of purifying what was your problems, could you say that the cause of all of your problems was a false idea of justice, a false idea of goodness, a false idea of love, a false idea of care, a false idea of strength, a false idea of knowing? And in removing what was false by addressing your problems and images and dreams and fantasies and daydreams and distractions, what were you able to experience? The truth of beauty, the truth of justice, the truth of reality, the truth of the paradigm. Now, what we're doing now in the Lama herding pictures is saying, hang on a second, let's use these ideas of truth to talk about what it is actually a reflection of, not truth into false, but just as goodness requires the original axiomatic principle of good, axiomatic, like that drop. I have an accent.
Debate weirdo perverts. I'm a debate pervert.
And I have an axiomatic.
Axiomatic. The principle or axiom or the cause of goodness is the good, so too your experience of the truth of beauty that you've verified both in your understanding through midwifery and becoming a midwife yourself and your purification of your false pathologos. What's the cause of truth? True. From false to truth to true. Another way of saying, hey, what in your problems and that you've been playing out, were you seeking many goals and reaching and solving your problems? Were you brought into a oneness? Hey, by the way, all of these aspects, was it the many examples of beauty or the many examples of justice, or was it a oneness? And all of those ideas themselves, beauty and justice, are they different? They're different. Are they separate? Nope. They all come together in a oneness. Therefore, that kind of dialectician in any one of those examples I just gave, in the 6th Lama picture, could engage in that kind of dialogue. And you can do it in your book because you're being encouraged to write the sequel where Socrates can have this kind of conversation with Buddha, to use what you do have about the selfers, about truth, about goodness, about oneness, or the inherent logos or intelligibility. Use what you do have from that intuitive intelligence, experience, and state of being to infer analogically and learn about the 5th dimensional intelligence, or the self. The inherent logos of the self, of the one, of the self, of the good, of the true. If that's the case, we're learning about the llama herding pictures. Oh, I'm behind in chat. So, Mr. Lama, why do you look so unconvinced by any subject you're being talked about? Why are you just ruminating through life totally unsensitive to whatever happens in your surroundings? This is the dialogue you're writing with the Lama. Lamas attain the ultimate stage of midwifery. No pathologos can reach them. A conversation with the Dalai Lama. Hey, maybe the Dalai Lama can be watching in the background. Oh yeah, I mean, if you're actually familiar with the Dalai Lama, you could create the Lama herding pictures for him. So, if that's the case, what we've seen is, in order to go from ignorance to wisdom, in the first 6 stages of enlightenment, we had to address these expressions of the pathologos because they are hierarchically ordered Nihilism is the worst. It's the shittiest state of mind. It's the loneliest feeling. It's the most depressed. It's the most in need for a dialectician to talk to you. Materialism, that kind of atheism is bad. Now, this is the most dangerous. The seventh, the Abrahamic, the Zoroastrian, good versus bad. But the highest, the ruling term, hierarchically arranged, the definition, giving rise to the others, is the sixth, an opposition to mind. In principle, all of these block your development into true mind, keeping you stuck in beliefs. So therefore, the pathologos defined by an opposition to mind would be the highest. So you have to address your own personal. So this is the movement from the personal to the transpersonal. But not only do we make use of what we have, so another analogy is to learn basic arithmetic, you have to have the English language. You go into your math class with the English language, and the mathematics, the arithmetic teacher makes use of what you bring in, what you've got already, makes use of that, and arranges your language to learn 1 + 1 is 2. Now, once you've got arithmetic in your back pocket, you can go to the calculus teacher. He uses what you bring in with arithmetic and arranges that to allow a higher intelligent functioning, a higher level of intelligence, calculus. Is this idea. Making use of what you do have access to, either problems with the 99% of people, or those who've reached the 8th oxiding picture, intuitive insight, experience of pure being, with understanding, of course. But we also have to make use of what you've got to reflect on the cause, while also addressing the principle that causes the clouds in the way. Because it's one thing to learn about what's true, but it's not really a learning, it's more of a reminding, because it's in you already. It's you already. It's the self. You can't learn something you don't already have access to in some kind of a way. Otherwise, where would you get it from? It has to be in you. Which is why these oxherding pictures seem to be more about purifying our pathologos. But again, you can't do one without the other. So really, not only do we make use of our intuitive intelligence in this higher kind of dialectical way as the riding the Lama home, but we have to be addressing the opposition to it, which we can only now see because this book is a fucking masterpiece and told us, hey, you guys need to find the missing piece. By looking at the structure of the book, putting these key terms, which we got from Socrates, into that structure, recognizing that we're missing the 10th hypothesis of Parmenides, we can add it in. So now we have an understanding of A, why Buddha is missing those extra oxherding pictures, and B, what we would need to add to it to fill out the full map of human spiritual enlightenment. We have to address not the specifics in the movement from the specifics to the transpersonal, but the principle, to move from the transpersonal to the principle of self itself. From the transpersonal, pure mind, what's objective, what's true, to what's not, what's beyond even that, the source of truth. The source of the universal mind, the axiom or the principle of pathologos, which you can only do with the logos. So you need that key term that we lost when we killed Socrates. And also we need that Hellenic tradition that we lost when we allowed the Emperor Justinian, fuckface McGee, to murder the philosophers, exile the rest, burn the libraries, and institute Christianity, bringing in the Dark Ages. Hundreds of years where everything was fucking terrible. Why? Oh, because, as we've seen, the manipulation of belief is what causes human problems in a societal level. Belief is the cause of human problems. Why? It's personal. It's specific. My belief is women suck, says the Christians for thousands of years. Thousands, up until very recently, we started to say, oh, maybe women are not cattle. Maybe they're the same as fucking men and should have a bank account and should be able to divorce their husbands. Only in our lifetime. Which is fucking wild. So, we can understand why we lost it and what we need to add to the tradition. The pathologos, the understanding of the pathologos as a principle within this hierarchical structure, and learn from applying this map to the oxherding pictures to gain an understanding of what's going on in the first 6 so we can fill out the next 6. Therefore, filling in the missing part to the philosophical tradition and filling in the missing parts to the Eastern spiritual tradition, the highest expression or the highest development within Eastern spirituality would be these Zen oxherding pictures, and now we're adding to it, which is what Socrates is encouraging us to do, to be part of that next class of Hellenic man. The non-interpreters are living exponents of a living tradition, contributing, adding, doing their own dialogues, even if it's about llamas. So we're starting to gain an understanding of what that midwife might be and what the problems might be. A problem with an identification with mind and not realizing that even beauty itself and justice itself, while truth is less than self or is not the true. And recognize in the 5th Lama picture, having some success, seeing the intelligibility, starting to learn about the principle of pathologos, which has been lacking up until, well, Dr. Pierre Grimes, the author of this book. Therefore, in making use of your intuitive intelligence that you've awoken through the work on midwifery you've been developing through your life, and again, depending on what sort of friends you have, you can move quickly. You do this every day. The Rational Society will be doing it at every classroom and every workplace before morning tea time, dream work. What that midwife might be using, making use of those eidos, and addressing a lack of understanding of the principle of pathologos. The paradigm of the ideal self, someone free from identification even with mind, by having learned about the principle of the pathologos itself at the same time, preparing you most sufficiently for a return back to what was formerly a glimpse, what might have been experienced as nothingness or emptiness, like the nirvana. It's emptiness. No, that's just a glimpse. Get to work. There is an inherent logos to be seen in it that requires these 4 activity stages. It ain't nothingness. And our idea is, whatever is that inherent logos, can we take that feeling of beyond transcending qualities, not nothingness, and our understanding, together awakening a higher divine intelligence, the 4th dimensional intelligence, allowing a greater kind of functioning. Not just in helping people like the 6th Lama, riding the Lama, but yourself. As the 8th oxherding picture wasn't helping others, they were themselves functioning in a way to find the inherent logos, asking the questions in the dialectic that they've been doing about causes, using analogy again, as above, so below. These are the 2 things Socrates left us at the end of the book. Causes, higher, transcendent, independent, prior. As above, so below. So you learn from your experience to find out what that might be. The dialectic is the method. You have to use the dialectic to do that, which is asking questions and following the logos as it unfolds with an open, curious mind. It's not in you, it's the logos as it unfolds, as Socrates says at the end of the book. Let's find what he says. Right at the end, Jesus says, well, that's just your opinion. And he goes, no. It's not me. I'm not doing this. He says, I go where reason bids me to go. And with her, I follow the logos. It's transpersonal. And Jesus says, well, that's just your opinion. No. Is a single path of the destiny of man lies in this single path of the Hellenes, for we all need the path we have walked, because to know thyself is to be Hellenic. And all of this is the power within the soul of man. That's the healing power of the logos, to overcome the pathologos, the sick image of self. And that's the ultimate thing we have to do at the end with the Lama pictures. Overcome the pathologos. Which was the last thing Socrates says. So, as he says, the last thing said should anticipate the sequel. So this is a clue. What we've just been inferring from the maps, that what has to be done, what has to be addressed in the Lama pictures is the pathologos as an idea. Socrates says, as his last words, yep, that's right. So now that we have our own hypothesis from the text, Apollo, and our reflection, Aphrodite, we have a general idea of what these missing 6 stages of enlightenment might be, which Socrates could introduce to Buddha in the book that you're writing, that you're encouraged to write. Next time, we will look at, because we're out of time today, we'll look at the 2 remaining ox-herding pictures, the 9 and 10, and see which of these we can find they might relate to. Because these things were, the 9th and 10th ox-herding picture were added much later within the Buddhist tradition. So maybe someone came along and maybe having met a philosopher, maybe, or something, said, oh, there was one guy I met who was like this 9th guy. But then there's another guy like the 10th. Which would they be? And can we fill out the rest? Can we complete the map of the spiritual development of man? So, as you can see, as I fade between scenes, we don't have that volume spike of my background music. I have got a new plugin for my music, my background music. So I apologize about those spikes in the last few episodes. When I updated OBS, the plugin didn't work properly. I was getting, in the fade, I was getting 2 versions of my background playlist, spiking the sound for that second where it was transitioning. But never to fear, it has been fixed. So lovely, warm, relaxing, soothing sounds of philosophy in your ears. So yeah, exciting. Pretty cool. Starting to gain some insight into what we might be after in our ultimate quest, ultimate goal. And let's look at the 2 ox-herding pictures left. Oh, and after we do that, we still have the 10 new ox-herding pictures written by someone who was familiar with the logos, pathologos, and dream analysis, the author of this masterpiece we've been reading. He made his own version. So that might help us in our quest. It seems like our true quest is, well, finish the map of the spiritual development of man so that we can walk it and share it with those who maybe have a good heart and good head and want to listen and play the game. The noblest game, they call it. Oh, and that can also maybe help us figure out the puzzle about Parmenides. Why did he say he was going down when he talked about the first hypothesis? And he gives us one hypothesis of the self, but we've seen that we go through these activity stages so that we can unify ousia and logos. So is there an ousia and logos of the self that we need to add to the Parmenides as well? Maybe that can we can find that as a result of our quest to finish the ox-herding pictures. The Dalai Lama approves and says goodbye from all his knowing, fully midwifed point of view. Thank you, Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama, the great Lama of the Lama herding pictures. How have your dreams been, by the way? Now that we've come to gain a hypothetical understanding that our dreams are the communication from God, or that very self we're looking for at the end of these enlightenment stages, at the end of the Lama herding pictures, that thing we're hoping to move into seems to be communicating to us every night in our dreams. And using that intelligence of even the 8th ox herding picture in doing so. Making use of that intuitive intelligence from a higher level of intelligence itself. Has that made you more interested in your dreams? Have you been recording them? Have you been transcribing them? Have you been trying your best to find a dialectical pattern? Applying that pyramid that we've been using, pyramid head, in the thumbnails. But there is a conclusion that you reach in a dream. You either reach your goal or don't. Oh, welcome Solace to Death and Despair. Oh my goodness. What a good username. I haven't had a dream since my spiritual awakening started. Oh, that's interesting. Have you been practicing recording them anyway? Now, it might be that you're getting dreams, but you're not used to remembering them. If you have an audio device next to your bed and you press record and start talking, even if you can't remember anything, you can build up a habit. Another trick you can try, if you like, is set a timer to go off at 2-hour intervals, because our dreams seem to come at 2-hour intervals. And if you wake yourself up, hit record, say whatever you can, go to sleep, it'll come up again, and then when you wake up in the morning, you might find a bunch of audio recordings of dreams you didn't even know that you had. Try it, if you want. And if you want to look at the dreams, you can see, hang on a second, was there a conclusion? Did I reach the goal set in my dream? What role did I play? What state of mind? And what might that tell me about my unsuspected idea of self? And of course, look for everything we've learned in our reading. Look for patterns, look for repetition. Are there any key words? Is there a turning point? All of these things can help. Are there any, metaphors? The furniture, the metaphors? Remember, look, not literal. It's not a literal dragon. It's not literally your friend Billy from year 4. They are analogical personifications or metaphors. What does it mean? What does it mean to you? So try it out. There's no book written on dream analysis yet. And again, that's the one of the 2 sequels the book is asking us to write. So if that's a communication from the highest idea of God or the self, that's our own destiny and goal. Has it made you more curious? And if you're having trouble remembering, try that setting an alarm every 2-hour trick. And that's our job for next time. Let's look at these 2 last ox herding pictures and fill in the pieces and see what comes up for us. And bring your curiosity, bring your wondering, and bring some sort of idea that you can carry in your mind, some puzzle that you have from your dreams the night before with you. If you want, see what happens. And I'll see you then in the